Chapter 661, What a beautiful boat. This is impossible. Several holy sons and holy virgins standing on a huge boat said in great surprise, I can't believe he can move faster than us sailing on a boat. The wave in the upflowing sea is so fierce, it is very difficult for us to stand still on its surface using an incantation. He is just standing on a board and manages to sail smoothly as if he has control over the waves. How does he manage to do so? Many cultivators were shocked by Zukei's smooth sailing. Their eyes grew wider and wider as they watched him. They were also rather embarrassed since not very long ago, they had laughed at Zukei for trying to sail with simply a board. Now Zukei was easily surpassing them. I underestimated him again. Liu Jingning said in relief. She had never thought Zukei would be able to sail safely on the board. It seemed that he was sailing on a sharp flying sword in the turbulent sea. Liu Jingning could not help staring at Zukei, and she could feel her fast heartbeat. All of a sudden, an enormous wave 10 miles high appeared. It looked like a gigantic palm heading for the shore. Zukei was still sailing on his board. He hadn't expected the wave to grow so large and failed to accurately maneuver over its height. The wave was about to devour him. Seeing this, Liu Jingning was shocked and shouted, Be careful. Guanjude was also stunned and got so worried that he even jumped up. What the hell? Those cultivators standing on the boat were rather happy to see this scene. Inuit, you were just showing off. First, you took off your clothes, then you sailed with a board. Even if you surpassed us, you cannot combat the wave. You are just an ordinary man. It is impossible for you to survive in the mysterious and scary sea. One wave is enough to destroy you. Many cultivators believed that Zukei would definitely be killed by the huge wave. No matter how fast he is, he cannot possibly get away from this in just a few seconds. However, Zukei was not terrified by the huge wave. Instead, he looked very excited and happy. He gently stepped on his board and moved his waist a little bit, and the next minute, the board immediately changed its direction. He began to move upward against the surface of the huge wave and quickly reached the top of it. Seeing this, everyone was stunned. Zukei reached the top and easily flew past the wave. Then he rotated his body 180 degrees and gently landed on the top of another wave behind the first. FCK. Buttface shouted, FCK FCK. Guanjude shouted, FCK FCK FCK. Buttface and Guanjude exclaimed at once. They both liked to show off in front of others, so when they saw Zukei successfully dodge the huge wave, they became envious of him. As for Liu Jingning, she finally loosened her grip and was once again relieved. What's going on with me? Why, I am so concerned about his safety now. Look at me. I've been worrying about him this whole time. This young man is really brilliant. Some of the holy virgins from the South Continent and North Sea were surprised. Zukei's great performance and speedo deeply attracted them and they could not peel their eyes away from the young man. Even the orc and the demon were shocked. How is this possible? He just flew so high in the sky and was not killed by the restriction incantation? A man from the Heaven Horn Ox tribe exclaimed. At first, this man hadn't given a SHT about Zukei and had merely regarded him as a useless disciple of Liu Jingning. He was now greatly shocked by the young man. He is just an ordinary man. How can he manage to come and go so freely in the upflowing sea? Besides, the restriction incantations here are very powerful. Once a cultivator of the form synthesis stage tried to fly across the upflowing sea by using an incantation. As soon as he left the ground, he was immediately killed by the restriction incantation. The incantation was not moving now, and Zukei was freely moving in the upflowing sea. There is no need to worry, Dong Zhenji said. You know the restriction only works for a cultivator. If we can fly without using an incantation, we won't be restricted. His boat was sailing right next to that of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe. He had been planning on working with them to get the living holy water and kill Zukei. However, Zukei's performance was way beyond Dong Zhenji's expectations, and this made him feel rather upset. Well, you can show off now, Dong Zhenji sneered while staring at Zukei. There is a calm area in front of you. Once we catch up, I will attack you and you shall fall into the sea. He strongly believed that Zuke could not go too far simply by relying on a board. The sea was in the season when there were not too many waves, and this lasted about 2 months. Besides, in some regions, there weren't any waves at all. Without the help of the waves, I can definitely catch up with him. I'll be able to kill him. Half an hour later, Zuke was in the very front, leaving many cultivators from the influential factions far behind. Never mind that, a man said while shaking his head. When we reach the area without any waves at all, we will quickly catch up with him. The sea was too big, and if they wanted to reach to the island closest to them, they would have to sail for at least 3 days. They all believed that when Zuke reached that region, he would not sail as fast as he was sailing now. However, when these cultivators finally arrived at that region, they were shocked by what they saw. Zuke, in his speedo and wearing a pair of sunglasses, was lying on the deck of an yacht and enjoying the sun. The yacht was sheer white and well decorated, and it looked very fashionable and grand. Zuke had rented it from the system and set up some restriction incantations on it, so he could stay in the yacht comfortably. What a beautiful boat! A holy virgin from the North Sea exclaimed. To be honest, the yacht was indeed very stunning. Zuke heard her voice and suddenly sat up. He looked at the holy virgin and asked, "Young lady, do you want to get onto my yacht?" Hearing this, the holy virgin could no longer suppress her curiosity. "Really? Can I get on?" she asked with a smile. "Of course." Zuke nodded and pointed at his genitals. "Come up and please yourself." Chapter 662. Do you want some steak? Climb up and do it yourself. Zuke's words were quite arrogant. Playboys like him who constantly flirted with girls were everywhere on the earth. However, people from the world of cultivators could never understand his slang. Therefore, many cultivators were suspicious of his words. How could an ordinary person be so arrogant? Some horny female cultivators watched Zuke with their eyes full of light. They couldn't help but lick their lips thoughtfully. The Holy Virgin from the North Sea smiled but didn't come to Zuke's yacht. "Thanks for your kindness, but I can't. I'm steering the ship now. If I get the chance, one day I'll definitely enjoy your ship," she said in a low, charming voice. "Okay, that's a deal." Zuke nodded in delight. "My yacht is very big. You could bring your girlfriends." The Holy Virgin of the North Sea smiled. "Okay, thanks again for your kind invitation. When the expenditure in the Mystery Land is finished, please come to the Yun family of the North Sea as my guest." The Yun family of the North Sea, okay, I got it. Zuke smiled even more happily. If people from the Water Nation were here, they would have been terrified by Zuke's smile. It was exactly same as his smile when he'd confiscated others' property by leading his troops and shouting that they wouldn't take a single needle or a piece of thread from the public. However, some male cultivators silently sneered, believing Zuke to be very ignorant. Anyone with discerning eyes could see the Holy Virgin of the Yun family was acting nice because she wanted Zuke's ship. If Zuke really dared visit the Yun family, he would be robbed and killed for his ship. Some people were looking Zuke's yacht up and down with interest. "This ship has a weird shape and is made of unique material. It's quite an attractive novelty." For cultivators, these kinds of novelties were attractive. "He's really good at hiding things," someone said. "He didn't take his ship out at first. I guess he hid the boat in his storage ring. Anyway, now that he has a ship, why isn't it moving?" he asked suspiciously. His question made people beside him laugh. He's just an ordinary person, remember? He can't control the ship or move it forward at all. So, he has to stop there. So that's it. I almost forgot." His words enlightened the crowd, and everyone started to nod. After making eye contact with the man of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe, Dong Genji smiled coldly. He decided that now was a good time to kill Zuke. "Zuke, I think now you should pay back the debt you owe our carefree building." Dong Genji, standing on his big ship, shouted coldly and put his hands behind his back. He felt now he had a 90% chance of killing Zuke. The man of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe also stepped out and, with a faint smile, said, "I didn't expect such a reckless man, one who dares to owe the carefree building a debt, could exist in this world." Building head Dong, Our Heaven Horn Ox tribe can't bear the sight of rascals, so we will help you seek justice. I really appreciate your help, Brother Ox. Dong Genji replied with a smile. The two of them echoed each other and formed a well-reasoned coalition. Then, they started to stare at Zhu Kai ferociously. The entire area fell silent. Nobody dared speak and watched the men coldly. The onlookers understood that Zhu Kai had offended the Carefree Building, and they didn't care about the involvement of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe in this issue. After all, Zhu Kai was just an ordinary person who had nothing to do with them. Whoosh! With an airy gust, two figures appeared on the yacht. The two figures were Zhu Kai's Taoist body and the Thunder Illusion body. With silver hair, they were quite handsome. They walked over from the deck of the yacht and stood in front of Zhu Kai. Zhu Kai stared at Dong Genji and the man of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe with a smile and shook his head. It's right and proper to pay off my debt. However, I don't remember owing anything to the Carefree Building. If I do, please present your evidence. Dong Genji frowned immediately. In the Mystery Land he'd still managed to get news from outside. He had been informed that Zhu Kai was guarded by over a dozen protectors, who were quite powerful and almost as strong as Zhu Kai before destroying his cultivation. This was also the reason that Dong Genji wanted to kill Zhu Kai in the upflowing sea. However, he hadn't expected Zhu Kai's protectors to be so powerful and arrive at this place before them. The onlookers were also shocked. What's going on? Why did two more people suddenly appear on the ship? That doesn't make sense. He went to sea by himself. How could two more people be there? I recognize one of them. He protected that guy from our pressure attack. But when did he go into the sea? Why didn't we sense that? Many people mumbled their surprise. How could two powerhouses at the infant transformation stage arrive at this place right under their noses completely undetected? The man of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe sent a message to Dong Genji. Building head Dong, are you ready? He ignored Zhu Kai's Taoist body and the Thunder Illusion body. They were just at the infant transformation stage after all. Dong Genji shook his head. Brother Ox, please hold on. Now it's no longer a good time to kill him. After the emergence of Zhu Kai's protectors, Dong Genji knew he couldn't be killed. If they started a fierce fight in this upflowing sea, they could activate the restrictive spells in the air, which would greatly endanger them. Killing Zhu Kai was not worth losing the advantage in the contest for the living holy water. However, his decision stunned the man of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe. He didn't understand why Dong Genji had suddenly changed his mind. But he knew Dong Genji was smart. Since Dong Genji said they should postpone the plan, he couldn't act recklessly. It was not because he was afraid of Zhu Kai. If their attack wasn't led by Dong Genji, and if he killed Zhu Kai alone, others might mock him for bullying an ordinary person. That would be a burning shame for the Heaven Horn Ox tribe. Zhu Kai just ignored Dong Genji and the man of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe. He looked at the Thunder Illusion body with a faint smile. It's time to take over Buttface and Liu Jingning. After saying that, he took out helicopter out of the system package. It abruptly appeared on the top of the yacht. What's that? People in this area were shocked again and felt quite curious about the helicopter. The shape of this item was also very weird. Zhu Kai ignored the onlookers' exclamations. He enjoyed the sun by lying on the deck of the yacht. Meanwhile, the notification of his successful tough acting kept echoing in his mind, which made him feel quite pleasant. His Thunder Illusion body went into the helicopter and started the engine. The rotor started rotating faster and faster, creating a violent wind. Took 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 took. The entire area filled with the deafening noise of the helicopter. The Thunder Illusion body pulled the control lever and the helicopter sprang into the air instantly, which created an indent on the surface of the sea. Many cultivators watched with surprise. What? This thing flies? They could sense that this thing had no spiritual chi. It should have been an ordinary object. It was strange that it could easily fly into the sky. As I expected, it has no spiritual chi fluctuation, so it can't be attacked by restrictive spells. If we can get this thing. When they saw the helicopter rapidly flying toward the seaside, an idea made their eyes light up. Apparently, this helicopter was much faster than their ships. It was even faster than Zhu Kai's surfing. If they could have this thing, it would be extremely easy for them to obtain the living holy water and win first place. My lord, what is that? The Holy Virgin of the Yun family from the North Sea couldn't help but ask hurriedly. Zhu Kei's ship was quite attractive, however, it didn't have any fluctuation of spiritual qi. For the Holy Virgin of the Yun family, this ship could be in one of her collections. But the iron box which had just flown away was different. It was quite miraculous that it could fly without spiritual qi or true core strength. If the Yun family could obtain this thing, they could definitely win first place in the competition and get the living holy water. It's a helicopter. Zhu Kei replied calmly without even lifting his eyelids, and its name is Yuhanato. The model is Sero 276. Do you have more helicopters? I want to purchase them with spirit stones. The Holy Virgin of the Yun family said immediately. Oh, no. The onlookers realized the Yun family had taken the initiative. Zhu Kei shook his head. No, our Exploding Heavens faction only has one Yuhanato. After saying that, he glanced at the Virgin of the Yun family curiously. Are you interested in helicopters? Why didn't you tell me earlier? If you had asked me, I would have certainly given it to you as a gift. Why didn't ask you earlier? SHT, you didn't take it out earlier. How could we know you had such a thing? The onlookers were quite embarrassed. Even the Holy Virgin of the Yun family smiled sheepishly. However, the Holy Sons, Holy Virgins and powerhouses from the East Continent became more vigilant. Most of them had dealt with Zhu Kei. This included Zhang Yushu, the Grand Elder of the Zhang family, Dong Zhenji of the Carefree Building, Qin Ji of the Illusionary Flower and Moon Sect, as well as other powerhouses of the Gong family and the Bei family. All of them had been horribly cheated by Zhu Kei. Now Zhu Kei had taken out a yacht and a helicopter, which could help him easily win first place. However, instead of striving for first place, he'd chosen to stop as if planning to show off his treasure. Something was definitely wrong here. After recalling Zhu Kei's tricks from before, cultivators from the East Continent immediately grew wary. This guy was going to cheat others again. Took 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 took. The noise of the helicopter suddenly started again. Everyone turned around to check. Several figures appeared in the helicopter. Liu Jingning, Duanjude, and a dog. This is way too fast. Someone exclaimed in shock. They had spent several hours to reach this area from the seaside. However, the helicopter managed to rapidly bring Liu Jingning and Duanjude over. Its speed was as fast as a flying cultivator. More importantly, the helicopter was immune to all the restrictive spells in the sky above the upflowing sea. Many people in the watching crowd were suddenly tempted. If Duanjude weren't there, they would have tried to steal the helicopter. When the helicopter approached, exclamations of Duanjude and Buttface came in from the sky. Wow, 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 wow. The old man and the dog were so excited that they couldn't help but thrust their heads out into the air with foolish laughter. At this moment, Zhu Kei walked to the edge of the deck and, with a smile, stared up at them. Buttface, do you want some steak? If you do, come here and kill that ox. Then, he pointed at the man of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe. Chapter 663, Tonight, we can have some beef. His words shocked everyone. Kill the ox? The Heaven Horn Ox tribe was one of the overlords in the South Continent. How could an ordinary person utter those arrogant words? Little brat, don't be mischievous. I remember we still have some beef left, Buttface said, embarrassed. He would rather drown himself in the sea than kill a Heaven Horn Ox. Duanjude fixed his shiny eyes on the man of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe. His action froze the blood of everyone around. Even members of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe could feel a chill. As an ordinary person, Zhu Kei's threat was nothing to them. However, Duanjude was different. Even the patriarchs of the big families and sects didn't want to offend him. If Duanjude wanted to kill some oxen, nobody could stop him. Duanjude looked at Zhu Kei thoughtfully. Young man, I could kill 10 oxen for you, and you are responsible for cooking. Let's divide the beef at a 70-30 ratio. I will get 70%, and you will have 30%. Hearing that, people of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe immediately turned pale. However, Zhu Kei stared at Duanjude directly and replied, Old beggar, You are too greedy. Your suggestion is so mean. You only kill 10 oxen and ask me to roast 7 for you. My suggestion is that you can drown yourself in the sea. Then how would you make the allocation? I won't accept a 50-50 ratio. I will suffer a big loss that way. Wanjud said, perplexed. Zhu Ke nodded to show his consent. Of course we can't divide them equally. I would also suffer a big loss. How about a 90-10 ratio? I will get 90%, and you can have 10%. What? Wanjud was so angry he opened his mouth widely. Little brat, you can't be so mean. A 90-10 ratio? I'd rather drown myself in the sea. Okay, you said that. You are going to drown yourself in the sea, right? Now, please start your performance. FCK. Wanjud was so annoyed he almost spat blood. However, he could do nothing. He kept staring at Zhu Ke and breathed heavily until the helicopter landed on the ground. Zhu Ke didn't want to waste time with Wanjud. He agreed to let Wanjud board the helicopter, so they could intimidate others together. He didn't expect Wanjud could kill someone for him. Liu Jingning looked at Zhu Ke in surprise. Little brat, since you have this kind of miraculous item, why didn't you take it out earlier? With this item, we could absolutely win in the first place. She was totally shocked when she boarded the helicopter. The thing could fly freely with no spiritual energy. It was immune to the destruction of the restrictive spells. If Zhu Ke had taken it out earlier, they would have arrived at the first island by now and could have successfully obtained the living holy water. It just came into my mind, Zhu Ke replied with a cheap excuse as he smiled and shrugged. Actually, nobody expected that he only wanted to act tough by making so many preparations. The competition should not prevent him from acting tough. He acted tough by surfing in the sea first. Then, he did it again with his yacht. Now, he took out his helicopter. The acting tough points he earned were several times that of the acting tough points he spent before. Before this, he only had 2,000 acting tough points left in the personal information interface. Now, the figure had been increased to more than 30,000 points, which made Zhu Ke a rich man again. Also, at this time, the rest of the ships started to approach Zhu Ke's yacht and were even about to surpass him. Many people were quite nervous about Wanjud's possible attack. The pale face of the man of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe was full of grievance. Zhu Ke had said he would be killed and cooked for food, which annoyed him so much he almost attacked Zhu Ke out of anger. However, he didn't dare say a word in front of Wanjud. Dong Zhenji's heart was filled with jealousy. He couldn't understand why Wanjud could protect Zhu Ke. Wanjud wouldn't attack Zhu Ke even when the two of them were cursing each other. Others who dared to disrespect Wanjud would be killed instantly. If Wanjud could hear Dong Zhenji's inner voice, he would complain tearfully. If it were not for my powerful master and that delicious burger, I would have killed that wicked guy. Hey, Holy Virgin of the Yun family, are you going to leave? Come here, and have a cup of tea. Zhu Ke shouted amicably at a giant ship. In order to strengthen the helicopter with restrictive spells the night before, Zhu Ke had rented it in advance. The lease term would expire soon, so he decided to make full use of the helicopter before its disappearance. People of the Yun family felt their blood was frozen. Their Holy Virgin, who was quite nervous, replied with an embarrassed smile, "Thanks a lot for your kind invitation. I really don't have time to go to your ship now." Are you kidding? To drink tea with Wanjud now is nothing but seeking death. Zhu Ke smiled and started to encourage the cultivators to buy this helicopter. Don't you want this helicopter? I could transfer it to you. My fellow cultivators, do you want to buy it? Hearing his words, powerhouses of the big families and sects from the East Continent couldn't help but twitch their lips. Some of them even planned to leave immediately. They remembered the scene where they were cheated by Zhu Ke in the Celestial Burial Valley. All of them knew clearly that this guy was about to cheat them again. However, people from the South Continent, the North Sea, and the West Desert were shocked by his offer. Why does he want to sell such a miraculous helicopter? Is it for real? Zhu Ke started to shout again. Come on, my friends, if you want to buy it, please state your price. You only need 998 to get this helicopter. Yes, you heard it correctly. Only 998. With 998, you can't suffer a loss. and you can't be cheated. Oh, no, you only need 998 to take the Yue Hanato home. He was in a bit of hurry because the lease term of the helicopter would expire soon. It would be a pity for the helicopter to disappear before someone could buy it. Liu Jingning and Buttface rolled their eyes. They knew of Zhu Kei's evil doing before. Therefore, they didn't believe Zhu Kei really wanted to sell the helicopter, but they chose to keep silent and watch Zhu Kei's performance. Wajud widened his eyes and said in surprise, "Young man, are you insane? Why do you want to sell this thing? What's wrong with this thing? I know it is miraculous, but how could I own it exclusively? I think I should share these miraculous things with everyone to benefit the world of cultivators. Guys, am I right?" Zhu Kei asked in a righteous and sonorous voice. People from the East Continent, who were embarrassed by his words, just stared at him disdainfully and said nothing. However, cultivators from the rest of the 3 continents couldn't hold back their eagerness. This was a miraculous tool that could help them win first place in the competition. If they could really get this thing, they didn't care how much spirit stones they would spend for it. However, the cultivators were still skeptical. They didn't believe Zhu Kei could sell such a good thing. The area fell silent. Zhu Kei continued his promotion. Actually, our Exploding Heavens faction has a lot of helicopters, but we are still unfolding, so we are in dire need of spirit stones. Therefore, we reluctantly have to sell the helicopters. You could also benefit from this. Like a song goes, as long as everyone could give a little bit of love to others, this world will become a delightful Eden. He promoted the sale of the helicopter enthusiastically by narrating and even singing. Finally, a monk from the West Desert who was tempted by his promotion asked, "Almsgiver, I want to know the meaning of the 998 mentioned by you." 998 means 9,980,000 best-grade spirit stones, Zhu Kei replied as he blinked his eyes. Everyone was stunned. 9,980,000 best-grade spirit stones? They could never scrape together so many spirit stones now. Nobody would take so many best-grade spirit stones into the mystery land. It was not an auction. Guys, please calm down. I haven't finished my words. 9,980,000 best-grade spirit stones was the price in the past. Now, the price is only 998,000 best-grade spirit stones. It is even less than 1 million. Zhu Kei said. Many people were tempted by this price. There was almost no difference between 998,000 and 1 million. Which was indeed an acceptable price. If they could win first place and obtain the living holy water, 1 million best-grade spirit stones was nothing. The man of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe couldn't help but say, "Wait, what if we buy this helicopter but don't know how to drive it? Could you guarantee you will teach us until we know how to drive it?" After all, they were determined to win the top 3 of the competition. The victory of others was unacceptable. Therefore, they decided to buy the helicopter. Even though they didn't know how to drive it, they wouldn't let others have it. Moreover, he didn't expect Zhu Kei could teach them, so he just asked casually. However, Zhu Kei replied without hesitating, "Brother Ox, please be assured, if you buy this helicopter, we will provide a pilot for free. We could even provide you with free beef wraps for your 3 meals per day." The man of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe was quite delighted. "Do you really mean it?" They could be assured if Zhu Kei could send a pilot to drive the helicopter. That way, they didn't need to worry about Zhu Kei's conspiracies. "Of course I mean it." "Okay, Li Bei of the Exploding Heavens faction will act as your pilot," Zhu Kei said to the man of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe, pointing at the thunder illusion body in the cockpit. The rest of the people were shocked by his words. How could he send a sovereign at the infant transformation stage to drive the helicopter for the Heaven Horn Ox tribe? The value of a sovereign at the infant transformation stage was far more than 1 million best-grade spirit stones. Could this Exploding Heavens faction really be in dire need of spirit stones? Even people from the East Continent were confused. If Zhu Kei only sold the helicopter, they would believe firmly that he was about to cheat them. However, The situation would be different if one of his people was sent to drive the helicopter. Zuke couldn't cheat his protector. The man of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe agreed immediately. Good, the Heaven Horn Ox tribe will buy this helicopter. To prevent others from raising the price, he took out a storage ring and threw it at Zuke. Seeing that, Dong Genji was about to stop him. However, he chose to keep silent, as if he remembered something. People of the rest of the families and sects frowned. If Nguyen weren't here, they would have started to fight for the helicopter. After checking the storage ring, Zuke said to the Thunder Illusion body with a satisfied smile, "Okay, this is indeed 1 million best grade spirit stones, Li Bei. Now you can take Brother Ox and his family members to the sky." Without hesitation, the Thunder Illusion body flew the helicopter directly toward the ship of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe. Being stared at grudgingly and enviously by the rest of the cultivators, the Heaven Horn Ox tribe sent 5 powerful cultivators to board the helicopter, including the man who had great discursive power. After boarding the helicopter, the man of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe sneered in his heart and started to look at Zuke sarcastically. "Haha. This guy is really a fool. No wonder he could become an ordinary person. He is so short-sighted that he could even sell this miraculous item to us. The Heaven Horn Ox tribe will definitely win first place of this competition." Wop 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 wop. The powerful helicopter started again and flew into the sky rapidly. However, just at that moment, Zuke took out something black and large he had been hiding. It was the god-powered cannon. Clang! Zuke placed the cannon directly on the yacht. Then, he shouted as he looked at his Taoist body. "Commander of the 2nd Battalion, shoot down that helicopter. Tonight, we can have some beef." Chapter 664, Aircraft Carrier Exploding Heavens. Shoot. Shoot it down? Hearing his words, the cultivators were shocked. The remaining members of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe on their ship were terrified. They about to spit blood because of the terror. All the young elites were in the helicopter. If the helicopter was shot down, they would fall into the upflowing sea, be instantly killed. "Stop! What are you going to do? Don't forget that your man is also on the helicopter. Are you going to kill your man as well?" The people of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe started yelling from the ship. They couldn't afford to lose the 5 young geniuses in the helicopter. "I don't care, and it's none of your business," Zuke said disdainfully. He'd sent the Thunder Illusion body to drive the helicopter because it couldn't be killed. Even if it fell into the upflowing sea, the Taoist body could summon it with some magic art. So, Zuke wasn't worried at all. No one understood this though. They thought Zuke was such a devil that he would kill his own people. Only Liu Jingning and Buttface knew the Thunder Illusion body was just a replication that could be killed at any time. However, they didn't expect Zuke to be so shameless. How could he trick those people into the helicopter and shoot them down? Whoosh! Zuke's Taoist body appeared behind the god-powered cannon. He made a glittering Taoist seal with his hands and then patted the cannon. Bang! The god-powered cannon started glow and emanated a dull sound. The violent light energy was accumulating in the cannon and was about to shoot out. The people of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe couldn't help but shout, "Stop, that helicopter belongs to us now." "Why will you shoot our helicopter?" "I just want to shoot it," Zuke arrogantly replied. "It's none of your business." His overbearing words dumbfounded the people from the Heaven Horn Ox tribe. Boom! A golden beam as powerful as the most powerful strike from a cultivator at the consummation of the original infant stage gushed out from the god-powered cannon and hit the helicopter in the sky. Bang! After a big bang, the helicopter was smashed to pieces. The next moment, 6 figures crying in fear fell like blown-off kites. "Quick, catch them with the ships!" An elder of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe yelled. "Please help us, and we'll repay you with satisfactory compensation." He ordered everyone else to drive the ship to catch the falling young geniuses. He also started asking other families and sects to help them. However, most of the families and sects from the South Continent chose to ignore his plea and watch coldly. The Heaven Horn Ox tribe was a powerful competitor for them in the South Continent. They were quite happy to see the deaths of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe's young geniuses. Many families and sects in the West Desert, The North Sea and the East Continent wanted to build good relations with the Heaven Hornox tribe and started driving their ships to the falling young geniuses to rescue them. However, the situation had gone beyond their expectation. After being shot out of the helicopter, the 5 young geniuses of the Heaven Hornox tribe were instantly seized with panic. After all, the upflowing sea was just like hell. Once they fell into it, their lives would be devoured by the sea together with their cultivation achievements. One of the young geniuses tapped into his true core strength to use his magic arts. Before he had time to stabilize his body in the sky, a light composed of countless runes appeared and wrapped up the young genius. Puff! That young genius of the Heaven Hornox tribe exploded into a cloud of blood mist. No! The heartbroken elder of the Heaven Hornox tribe screamed. Someone loudly reminded, "Don't use your magic, just wait for us to rescue you." The explosion and the reminder calmed the other 4 young geniuses immediately. They resisted the urge to use magic arts and continued falling. Among them, the man with greater discursive power sighed in relief after noticing a big ship was approaching him. After that, he started to feel fury in his heart. He couldn't accept being fooled by Zhu Ke, who was just an ordinary person. "Zhu Ke, you have now become a sworn enemy of the Heaven Hornox tribe," he shouted as he fell. "We'll hunt you till your death." Originally, he'd planned to kill Zhu Ke with Dong Zhenji. He'd ended up being set up by Zhu Ke, which naturally annoyed him. With a faint smile, Zhu Ke calmly said, "Calf, you can ask the big shots from the East Continent. All of them talk about hunting me. I'm tired of listening to all this." The cultivators from the East Continent stiffened and their lips twitched slightly. What he said was true. Most of the families and sects participating in this Mysteryland trial had been cheated by him. It seemed all the families and sects had promised they would hunt Zhu Ke until he'd been killed except the Utopia faction and the Heaven Secret Pavilion. However, none of them had managed to kill Zhu Ke, even after he'd become an ordinary person. This is so annoying. Many powerhouses from the East Continent silently exclaimed. "Okay, that's it for today." Zhu Ke spoke some ruthless words with a cold smile. "Now everyone knows I'm the big boss of the mighty Exploding Heavens faction, so think about it before provoking me again. Scum. You'll see the consequences of offending me soon." He was absolutely acting tough with those words. However, his words made many people feel grimly serious. Either he dares to utter those words as an ordinary person because he has powerful backers, or he is just a fool. To kill people from the Heaven Hornox tribe, he killed his own protector. His merciless killing made many people believe he had powerful backers. Also, Wanjud, who stood beside Zhu Ke, was most formidable. It seemed Wanjud also had the same idea. He looked at Zhu Ke and, with a cold smile, said, "Young man, you're really lucky. They won't attack you because I'm here. But you should know I'm not your protector, and don't expect me to always protect you like this." Zhu Ke rolled his eyes. "Nonsense. If you weren't here I could fool more people into the helicopter. Just go if you don't have other issues here. Don't stand on my ship." "You don't want me to stand on your ship, are you sure?" Wanjud said with a sarcastic smile. Zhu Ke's eyes widened. "Of course, you have jeopardized my mood. Now my breathing isn't smooth." Wanjud laughed. "Young man, you should behave yourself. You should realize that if I were not here, you would have long been killed by those people." Zhu Ke made a weird noise. "PFFT, what does that mean?" "I'm mocking you, old beggar," Zhu Ke said disdainfully. "Do you have any honor?" "They're intimidated by my gracefulness. That's why they don't dare come close to me." "How could you tarnish your image like this?" "FCK." Wanjud cursed angrily. "Don't cross the line. Now you're tarnishing your image." "You should ask them. Are they afraid of you, an ordinary person, or me?" "I won't ask. I just won't ask." "What will you do?" "Fine. I'll leave now. Don't beg for my help later." Wanjud was so annoyed that he left by jumping onto a passing ship. Some people were busy rescuing the falling young geniuses of the Heaven Hornox tribe, but most people were dumbfounded by the conversation between Zhu Ke and Wanjud. "What's going on?" "It seems these two weirdos have started fighting." "Guys, if you have a grudge against this young man, You can come seek your justice and I won't intervene, I promise. Wanjud shouted coldly. He thought it was necessary to punish Zuke now and stop him from being arrogant like that. Otherwise, how could he maintain his reputation in the world? You are so ignorant, Zuke said from his yacht with a sarcastic smile. He stared at Wanjud with disdainful eyes. Wanjud was annoyed by his gaze. Little brat, don't cross the line. If you continue to stare at me like this, I won't help you even if my master punishes me for it. You're a dog if you dare try to rescue me, Zuke said indifferently. FCK. Wanjud was totally furious at this point. Fine, you said that. Don't blame my ruthlessness. Hearing his words, the onlookers' eyes lit up. It seems the two of them really just had a falling out. Without the protection of Wanjud, this guy has nothing for us to fear. Little brat, you. Liu Jingning was also stunned. She hadn't expected Zuke to really get annoyed while making fun of Wanjud. She also thought it was quite clear that Zuke could have been killed by the families and sects from the four continents if Wanjud weren't here. They would never be intimidated by an ordinary person. My god, little brat, what are you going to do? Buttface was shocked, so he hid behind Zuke immediately. Zuke smiled and said nothing. He put his hands behind his back as if he were an expert recluse. At this moment, the man of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe still falling couldn't help but shout, "Guys, this guy is just an ordinary person. He set up our Heaven Horn Ox tribe and even offended Senior Dwan. Our Heaven Horn Ox tribe will reward the one who kills him with 10 million high-grade spirit stones and 10 9-star magic artifacts." Meanwhile, Dong Genji also took this opportunity to shout, "The Carefree building will increase that. The one who kills this guy will be given 10 places in the Carefree building. Kill him." All at once, several families and sects drove their ships directly toward Zuke. For them, this was a great chance to make friends with the Heaven Horn Ox tribe and the Carefree building. This, combined with the attractive bonus, had them attacking without hesitation. Seeing people attack, those still hesitating immediately drove their ships toward Zuke. After all, they could get 10 million high-grade spirit stones from the Heaven Horn Ox tribe by killing just one ordinary person. It was really a lucrative prize that could only be afforded by the Heaven Horn Ox tribe. They own dozens of spirit stone mines in the South Continent. Oh, no. Little brat, do you still have that kind of helicopter? Liu Jingning asked anxiously. Let's leave here immediately. She realized the situation was quite dangerous. Zuke shook his head. Helicopter? No. He shrugged with a faint smile. Liu Jingning's face was as white as a sheet. Even she, as a mighty holy virgin, could do nothing to defeat so many families and sects. What awaited them now was certain death. She thought of Zuke's diving escape spell, but she shook her head immediately. She knew clearly that Zuke's spell could only teleport them to a place not far away from here. Therefore, once they used the spell, they might be teleported to the sea surface of the upflowing sea not far away, which also meant death for them. Finally, Liu Jingning bit her lip slightly as if she had made up her mind to do something. Then, she turned around and, with a wry smile, stared at Zuke and said, "Little quack, you should find a place to hide, then you could try to escape." After saying that, she turned around resolutely. In front of so many big ships, she sighed slightly and waved her slender hands. It seemed she was about to use some magic arts. A hand suddenly patted her shoulder, interrupting her magic art stance. "Little sister, are you going to save me by risking your life? Don't do that. It's too melodramatic. You could save me just by being my woman." "You." Liu Jingning turned around and found Zuke staring at her with a smile. She angrily said, "This is no time for jokes. When I stop them, you can beg for help from Wanjud. But, it's possible I can't hold them back for a long time. Please don't tell me you're serious about this." "I haven't finished talking yet. I don't have any helicopters left, but, I have plenty of nuclear submarines and aircraft carriers." After saying that, he waved his hand and shouted, "Come forth, aircraft carrier exploding heavens." Boom, boom, boom. Explosions caused huge waves to fly along the quiet surface of the sea. The next moment, 10 gigantic objects rose to the sea surface. They were inky black submarines. The ships of the families and sects were tightly encircled by the submarines. Woo-oo woo-oo. A jarring whistle came in from afar. 4 enormous aircraft carriers, as big as mountains, moved toward them rapidly with the wind and waves. Chapter 665. How the hell can we play with him? At this moment, wind and clouds were raging above the sea. The pitch-black nuclear submarines, which were just like steel monsters, were so big that only their upper halves were above the sea surface. The ships of the families and sects looked like ants in front of the submarines. The majestic circle formed by 10 nuclear submarines turned the ships of the families and sects into fish in a barrel. Even more surprisingly, 4 aircraft carriers, which were almost as large as an ancient city, were dashing over at an amazing speed from afar, breaking the waves. The whole area suddenly fell silent. The people were shocked. How could he propel those huge ships without the spiritual chi? No, the point is that we have been surrounded. What are those 10 steel monsters? How can they dive in the upflowing sea? Many people were discussing, furrowing their eyebrows. Liu Jingning was also shocked. She didn't expect Zhu Ke to have prepared such a big surprise for them. He had summoned so many huge ships with his mind. Little quack. Why didn't you tell me earlier? I thought you were doomed this time. Liu Jingning glanced at Zhu Ke winningly, which was so ravishing and tempting. Seeing her reaction, Zhu Ke felt headache, melancholy. He covered his face and said, "Little sister, please don't do that. I am becoming weaker day by day." Liu Jingning smiled thoughtfully. "What happened?" "What I see is you becoming stronger every day." Zhu Ke rolled his eyes and didn't reply. He started to look around. When he saw the frightened expressions of those cultivators, he smiled. The nuclear submarines and aircraft carriers were the killing moves he had prepared. Normally, those high-tech products couldn't hurt powerhouses at the void training stage. But the current situation was different. Everyone was in the upflowing sea. Zhu Ke could easily destroy those ships with cannons, even though the ships had been strengthened by restrictive spells. Most weapons mounted on the nuclear submarines and aircraft carriers were the god-powered cannons. The combination of those and nuclear bombs were extraordinarily nasty. They could destroy many ships and drown a lot of powerhouses instantly. My fellow cultivators, are you still going to lay siege to me? Zhu Ke asked with a confident smile. His words stunned the cultivators a bit. Then, they started to show sarcastic expressions. The man of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe laughed impudently after hearing Zhu Ke's words. Ha ha ha, little brat, are you insane? He saw the ship of his tribe had arrived and could catch him safely, so he had been relieved. Do you think you can threaten us with those iron sheets? What a naive fool. Open your eyes. Our ships are made of divine woods that have been strengthened with restrictive spells. You could never damage them. The man of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe taunted him, and his words were identical to the inner voices of the rest of the cultivators. Although they were impressed by Zhu Ke's miraculous iron ships, which were big and could sail under the water, they didn't take the submarines and aircraft carriers seriously. According to their knowledge of sea battles, cultivators used magic arts to attack each other over a long distance, and they would drive their ships to knock against each other. Those who had the toughest ships would always win. In the upflowing sea, they didn't dare use magic arts casually for fear that they would trigger the attack of the restrictive spells in the sky. Zhu Ke's ships seemed majestic. However, they couldn't sense any fluctuation of spiritual chi on them. Those ships were made of ordinary iron, which couldn't damage their ships. That was the reason for their arrogant attitude. For them, Zhu Ke's submarines and aircraft carriers were nothing. A cultivator approached Zhu Ke with his tribesmen from the south continent and scolded coldly. The outlook of an ordinary person could never be put on par with ours. Young man, I suggest you surrender without a fight. You know nothing about the strength of cultivators like us. An old man tried to persuade him. You will never leave this place because you have offended the Heaven Horn Ox tribe. If you can end your life yourself, we might keep your body intact. However, You should surrender these items to us first. A young holy son on another big ship smiled. Hey, there are only about 10 ships, which are not enough for us to distribute equally. So, the woman beside him belongs to our prevailing wind pavilion. Are you out of your mind? She is the Holy Virgin of the Utopia faction. Someone reminded him. Liu Jingning darkened her face immediately. She looked at the Holy Son of the prevailing wind pavilion coldly, and her eyes were full of killing intent. The Holy Son of the prevailing wind pavilion kept his eyes on Liu Jingning and shook his head, smiling. So what? She is with that guy. They are so rude in the South Continent. Even the patriarch of the Utopia faction can't scare the prevailing wind pavilion away. Haha, that is correct. By cooperating with that guy, the Utopia faction has made an enemy of the South Continent. However, this woman is mine. Naiu Bashan, the man of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe who is still falling down in the sky, laughed impudently. He had been longing for Liu Jingning for a long time, but he couldn't get her forcibly because of many constraint factors. Now, he had a just cause, so his real face was exposed. Hearing his words, the Holy Son of the prevailing wind pavilion frowned and immediately said with a smile, "Since Brother Ox wants her, she is yours. Brother Lin, thanks for your kindness. If you don't mind, both of us could enjoy her service together." Naiu Bashan laughed overbearingly. His words confused the rest of the cultivators. They had heard Naiu Bashan had some special hobbies, such as having sex with many people. They didn't expect him to speak about it in front of everyone. Moreover, his target was a holy virgin. His behavior was way too outrageous. The Heaven Horn Ox tribe was extremely powerful. However, so Naiu Bashan had the courage and strength to be so arrogant. On a ship not far away, powerhouses of the Utopia faction were angry after hearing Naiu Bashan's words. He humiliated Liu Jingning, their holy virgin, which meant he was humiliating the Utopia faction. "You are seeking death," Liu Jingning said. Meanwhile, she waved her slender hand and was about to use magic arts. However, her hand was suddenly held by Zhu Ke, who said with a faint smile, "Don't use magic arts here. You could be attacked by the restrictive spells in this place. Let me handle it." Liu Jingning was stunned. Actually, she thought Zhu Ke could do nothing to punish those people. After calming down, she knew those submarines were just ordinary iron tools. They could not frighten the cultivators. So, she decided to show her strength to keep the cultivators away. When she heard Zhu Ke utter, "Let me handle it," all worries in her heart dissipated instantly. This young man, who looked so gentle, could support the sky for her and shelter her from all kinds of danger. Naiu Bashan. Zhu Ke darkened his face and stood beside Liu Jingning, fixing his eyes on him. Naiu Bashan had become fearless because he was about to land on the ship of his tribe. So, he said with a sarcastic smile, "Shut up, as an ant. You are not qualified to call my name. Just stay there, and wait for me to take your dog life after my landing." "Hey, you should target me, and don't threaten me with the life of Buttface." Zhu Ke sneered. Buttface cursed immediately. "FCK, little brat. He said he will take your dog-like life. It's none of my business." Zhu Ke pushed Buttface back and fixed his eyes on Naiu Bashan. Then, he said with a cold smile, "Also, who said you could land on that ship?" After saying that, 3 nuclear submarines started suddenly and turned to the Heaven Horn Ox tribe's ship. Puff, puff, puff. 3 dull sounds came from the sea. 3 torpedoes fired by the god-powered cannons were sailing toward that ship, creating strands of ripples. Rumble. Before the rest of the cultivators had time to react, a big bend came in. After a violent vibration, half of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe's ship had been turned into wood chips, which were scattered on the water. People of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe who had been standing on that half of the ship fell right into the upflowing sea. A moment later, all of them were devoured by the sea without a scream. The entire area abruptly fell silent. "How could this be?" someone murmured. his eyes full of terror. The other half of the ship was also sinking. The shipwreck was being devoured by the sea. People on that half of the ship were freaking out. Impossible. That's impossible. How could this be? We made that ship with so many divine woods. How could it be so vulnerable? Where are the ships? Just come here to save us. They started to scream in panic. The shipwreck was about to sink, but there was no ship in the area for them to jump to. The others wanted to save Naiu Bashan, but the shipwreck was quite far away. Once they tried to fly to those ships with magic arts, they would be killed by the restrictive spells in the sky. They had been driven to the last ditch. Zuke then waved his hand and shouted, again. Boom. 3 submarines fired torpedoes again, which hit the shipwreck directly. Zuke had deprived them of their chance to linger with their last breath of life. The violent explosion tore the shipwreck into pieces. All the people of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe fell into the water and were killed instantly. No. Naiu Bashan saw what happened and started to scream hysterically. Zuke smiled and shouted, pointing at Naiu Bashan, all aircraft carriers, launch all carrier-borne aircrafts, and blow that ox into the sky. Keep firing at him until he is medium done. Then, he can land. Swish, swish, swish. After getting the order from Zuke, a cloud of jet fighters took off from the 4 aircraft carriers like a swarm of bees, which created deafening noises. The fighters started to shoot at Naiu Bashan with their cannons. Boom, boom, boom. All cannonballs hit their target accurately, blowing the falling Naiu Bashan back into the sky. The cultivators were dumbfounded on the spot. The greatly shocked people swallowed with difficulty. In their minds, there was only one thought of despair: how the hell can we play with him? Chapter 666. This is so awesome. Watching the jet fighters zoom like a swarm of bees in the sky, the powerhouses were totally shocked and stared with complicated expressions. They were very vulnerable in front of these unreasonably powerful objects. The upflowing sea was full of all kinds of restrictive spells. Whether he used a helicopter, the submarines, the aircraft carriers, or the jet fighters, Zuke could easily defeat them. This competition was unfair. They would never win. Many of them were in anguish, especially the Holy Son of the Prevailing Pavilion, who said he would take Liu Jingning away, felt his face fall along with the other members of the sect. This guy is really creepy. Where does he come from? How could he have so many miraculous items? Outside the Mystery Land, those things could easily be destroyed. However, they are, indeed, miraculous items in the upflowing sea. 2 elders of the Prevailing Wind Pavilion solemnly murmured. They stared at Zuke vigilantly for fear that they could be his next targets. In that case, they would perish after the Heaven Horn Ox tribe. Don't worry, it seems this guy doesn't know the world of cultivators very well, the Holy Son of the Prevailing Wind Pavilion said in a low voice to encourage his men. He has no idea how powerful our Prevailing Wind Pavilion is. He can't afford to offend us. An elder smiled dryly. Holy Son, he dared to offend the Heaven Horn Ox tribe. Forget us. Because the Heaven Horn Ox tribe was stupid, the Holy Son replied. They didn't mention their status in the South Continent. This guy is reckless and opinionated. If we tell him the interest and stake in this issue, he will never dare to attack us. With a cold smile, he started to gradually calm down. His words convinced the other members of the Prevailing Wind Pavilion. Therefore, they also calmed down and started to stare at Zuke. At this moment, Zuke was focusing on Naiu Bashan, who was yelling angrily as he was blown up by the missiles. The funny look on his face made Zuke laugh. He actually hadn't expected the submarine's torpedoes to be so powerful. On a whim, he'd modified the god-powered cannon by using the torpedoes as its ammunition. He could still fire the cannon using spirit stones as energy. He also hadn't expected that after the torpedoes hit the ships, it would activate the restrictive spells and cause an explosion. The big ship of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe shattered instantly under the combined force. The jet fighters from the aircraft carriers were only equipped with ordinary missiles. All those jet fighters were unmanned and controlled by Zuke's soul strength. They were quite powerful but still couldn't harm a cultivator at the void training stage. Zuke knew these cultivators didn't dare to use magic arts here, especially when they were in the sky, Using magic arts could trigger the restrictive spells, which could eliminate them instantly. Therefore, these jet fighters and the missiles were very useful at the moment. The explosion of each missile hurt Naiu Bashan and tossed him around, but he didn't dare use his true core strength to defend himself or fight back. He choked with anger. Naiu Bashan, are you well cooked? Zhu Kai shouted loudly. The onlookers couldn't help but twitch with embarrassment. Is he really going to bake Naiu Bashan with the missiles? But you can't just ask whether he is well cooked or not. Have you considered the man's feelings? Naiu Bashan, who was too enraged to say anything, howled angrily. He'd witnessed the subversion of his tribe members as well as his ship with his own eyes. If Zhu Kai hadn't ordered the jet fighters to blow him up with the missiles, he would have fallen into the upflowing sea and died on the spot. However, he didn't consider this lucky. On the contrary, he was becoming even more and more furious. Zhu Kai was simply humiliating him, which made him deadly angry. Representing the Heaven Horn Ox tribe, Naiu Bashan yelled angrily, I hereby take a vow that we will find you and kill you wherever you hide, then we will extract your soul and burn it forever. His deafening voice echoed throughout the area. However, Zhu Kai replied with a calm smile, the Heaven Horn Ox tribe is nothing. All of you will become beef in my bowl. Anyways, are you well cooked yet? Why can you still speak? FCK off. Naiu Bashan yelled angrily. You are just an ordinary person and you could never hurt me. When I land, my punishment will be worse than death. Really? Okay, I'll let you land. Zhu Kai laughed with a wave of his hand. All the jet fighters immediately stopped their attack. When there were no missile flying at Naiu Bashan, he instantly started to panic. Without the explosion of the missiles, he started to fall. Below him, the mighty upflowing sea awaited, and there was no ship around him. No. Naiu Bashan shouted immediately. His eyes red. He realized that being bombarded by missiles was much better than losing his life in the sea. Naiu Bashan looked at Zhu Kai and shouted, little brat, that's it. Please help me land on a ship. The Heaven Horn Ox Tribble will let bygones be bygones. Okay, okay. Zhu Kai nodded gleefully. He pointed at several jet fighters in the sky, which immediately fired missiles at Naiu Bashan. However, this time the missiles exploded right above Naiu Bashan. Rumble. Being pushed down by the violent explosion, Naiu Bashan started to fall toward the sea surface at a faster speed. Oh, sorry, I missed. Zhu Kai said with a smile, but there was no guilt in his face. Naiu Bashan was extremely furious. Before he had time to finish his cursing, he dropped into the sea. Splash. With a big splash, he turned into a pool of blood in the upflowing sea. All at once, everyone in this area was terrified, chills spiraling down their backs. How is this guy so ruthless? He's not like an ordinary person at all. As he talked to him, he killed with a laugh Naiu Bashan by letting him fall into the upflowing sea. Is he ignorant or fearless? Among them, the one who was most surprised was Wanjud. After boarding another ship, this old man was quite unhappy. He planned to rescue Zhu Kai once he started begging for help after being inevitably cornered. However, he didn't expect Zhu Kai to have so many strategies and tricks. After taking out miraculous items which had never been heard of, Zhu Kai had just become the overlord of the upflowing sea. Damn, is he really from the Five Elements Mountain? I've never seen things like that in the Five Elements Mountain before. Wanjud's eyelids twitched. He felt terror in his heart. He was now curious about Zhu Kai's background and history, but they also worried him quite a bit. Hell, no. If my master returns and decides to put this guy in an important position, could he cheat her? My master has been a cultivator for several thousand years. She is extremely powerful and abhors evil. She treats evil as a deadly foe, but she is also innocent. Wanjud the feeling that he couldn't allow Zhu Kai to get close to his master, otherwise, something serious would happen. Alas, what a pity. I've wasted so much quality beef. Zhu Kai said regretfully. Forget it, now the Heaven Horn Ox tribe is out. Next one, the Prevailing Wind Pavilion. Zhu Kai turned his gaze directly on Prevailing Wind Pavilion. They were immediately shocked. Although they had psychologically prepared for Zhu Kai's revenge, They were now panicking. The Holy Son of the Prevailing Wind Pavilion stepped out and put his hands behind his back. Then, he arrogantly asked, "You're Zuke, right? Do you know how powerful the Heaven Horn Ox tribe you just killed is in the South Continent? Do you know our Prevailing Wind Pavilion is also an extraordinary sect in the South Continent?" "I don't know." "Okay, nuclear submarines, prepare to fire the torpedoes." 3, 2, 1, fire. Chapter 667. He is really ruthless. What? The Prevailing Wind Pavilion's Holy Son was stunned. He couldn't believe what he had heard. His harsh questioning could scare most people away. After all, the Prevailing Wind Pavilion was one of the overlords of the South Continent. Nobody dared to offend them casually. However, Zuke even didn't look at him seriously. He just replied with 3 words, "I don't know." Then, he ordered the submarines to attack. Simple, rude, straightforward, and neat. Not only did the members of the Prevailing Wind Pavilion not have time to react, but the rest of the cultivators were also dumbfounded. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Dull sounds came from the upflowing sea again. The ripples on the water suggested several torpedoes were rushing toward the Prevailing Wind Pavilion's ship. Their Holy Son changed his facial expression abruptly and shouted, "Stop!" At that moment, he realized he had the wrong idea about Zuke. He was not a hot-headed man but a ruthless one, who always hid a dagger in his smile. As a young man, he could be so resolute in killing without considering the strength of his opponents. He was even more formidable than Wanjude. Boom. Finally, the Prevailing Wind Pavilion's shout didn't work. After being hit by several torpedoes, their ship, which was not as strong as that of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe, was instantly torn to pieces. All powerhouses of the Prevailing Wind Pavilion fell into the upflowing sea, where they were quickly devoured before even having a chance to scream. The upflowing sea was full of killing traps. No one could survive after falling into it. The area fell silent again. Many people didn't even dare to gasp. Deep in their hearts, they were in unbelievable shock. An ordinary person had killed all members of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe and the Prevailing Wind Pavilion. Just like that, he even killed those with the power of the upflowing sea. The rest of the cultivators were still shocked and terrified. Liu Jingning was also in shock. She widened her beautiful eyes, and her face was full of disbelief. Zuke uttering "let me handle it" was still echoing in her mind. He really did handle it. He crushed his enemies like it was nothing. The Heaven Horn Ox tribe and the Prevailing Wind Pavilion were like ants to him. Alas, he showed off again. This is so annoying. I should also have shown my skills. Buttface was quite depressed and unconvinced, having thought Zuke might be defeated. He even planned to run away. Buttface didn't expect Zuke to so effortlessly defeat his opponents in such an overbearing way. It made him quite envious. Hey, it seems the Prevailing Wind Pavilion is just so-so. Come on, who will be my next target? Zuke squinted his eyes and looked at the rest of the cultivators with a smile. The cultivators were so terrified they felt like their blood was frozen. The world of cultivators was a dog-eat-dog world. Killing and robbery were ubiquitous. Everyone had gotten used to it. However, at that moment, they realized how horrible this young man was. His cruel, ruthless, and resolute killing shocked numerous powerhouses. More importantly, he was just an ordinary person. They tried to avoid eye contact with Zuke for fear that they would end up like the Heaven Horn Ox tribe and the Prevailing Wind Pavilion. Zuke was quite satisfied with this effect. System warning tones kept echoing in his mind, and his acting tough points had exceeded 50,000. It was so profitable for him. More importantly, he had ordered his Taoist body to control all submarines and aircraft carriers. He then killed the people of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe and the Prevailing Wind Pavilion with the strength of the upflowing sea. After that, the Taoist body had reached level 10 of the infant transformation stage, which was the summit of that stage. He even had an overflow of experience points. His real body was still an ordinary person with no cultivation achievements. Zuke was not in a hurry. However, with abundant resources, he could regain his cultivation achievements easily. Seeing that Zuke was still peeping at him, Wanjude jumped up and shouted, "SHT, little brat, why are you looking at me?" No matter how powerful he was, he would still be killed if he fell into the upflowing sea. Coward, why are you in such a panic? Zhu Ke said disdainfully. As a matter of fact, he didn't plan to attack Duanjud. After all, except for Buttface and Liu Jingning, Duanjud could be considered an upright gentleman among the other cultivators. After the announcement of the bounty by the Heaven Horn Ox tribe and the Carefree building, all the cultivators had tried to kill Zhu Ke. They didn't care if Zhu Ke was just an ordinary person. In order to make it up to the Heaven Horn Ox tribe and the Carefree building, they didn't hesitate to participate in the killing. Zhu Ke was quite angry with their behavior. Therefore, after killing all members of the Heaven Horn Ox tribe and the Prevailing Wind Pavilion, Zhu Ke had targeted the Carefree building. Dong Zhenji. Zhu Ke started the roll call. Dong Zhenji changed his facial expression. Even the geniuses behind him darkened their faces. That was the first time the fate of a bunch of revered geniuses was to be decided by someone else. Moreover, the one controlling their life or death was an ordinary person. Zhu Ke, are you really going to kill all of us? Dong Zhenji asked coldly. Don't worry, I am not that kind of person, Zhu Ke replied with a gentle smile. Dong Zhenji and his men twitched their lips. You are just that kind of person. Zhu Ke, you will regret your decision to attack our Carefree building. We have obtained information about the ancient Bronze Hall, which is related to Zhang Hongyan's safety. Now, are you still going to kill us? Dong Zhenji asked again. Really? Zhu Ke sneered. He didn't believe Dong Zhenji at all. What this hypocrite said could be false in all likelihood. However, Liu Jingning sent messages to Zhu Ke. What he said is correct. When you disappeared, Dong Zhenji and his men found an ancient book, which recorded the history of the ancient Bronze Hall. But the Carefree building refused to disclose the information in that ancient book. How could this be? Zhu Ke was surprised and didn't continue his inquiry. Instead, he looked at Dong Zhenji and said with a smile, give me that ancient book, and I won't hurt you. Dong Zhenji shook his head immediately. He was not a fool. That's not going to happen unless we go ashore together. Otherwise, I'd rather throw it into the upflowing sea. According to his understanding of Zhu Ke, he knew Zhu Ke could eat his words easily. If he surrendered that book now, Zhu Ke would definitely kill them in the next second. Zhu Ke nodded in agreement with Dong Zhenji's request. Okay, you can give it to me when we go ashore. Zhu Ke also knew Dong Zhenji very well. He would really throw the ancient book into the upflowing sea if he was pushed to the corner. In addition, Zhu Ke didn't worry that Dong Zhenji would eat his words. He had numerous methods to ask Duanjud to solve this problem for him. People of the rest of the families and sects became more and more anxious. The Carefree building survived. Who will be his next target? The big families and sects from the East continent got the most anxious. The Zhang family even hoped they could become invisible, so they could dodge Zhu Ke's eyes. Deep in their hearts, they were quite angry. They wouldn't be so bewildered if they were not in the upflowing sea. Guys, calm down. I am not a person who kills at will. It's not necessary to be so nervous. As cultivators, we should be reasonable. If you didn't offend me, I won't attack you, Zhu Ke said with a faint smile. His voice was not loud, but everyone could hear him clearly. The cultivators twitched their lips, embarrassed. All of them had participated in the attack, so they had already offended Zhu Ke. A monk stepped out and put his palms together. He said calmly, Amitabha, Almsgiver Zhu, what we did just now was wrong. Let me cut to the chase. What should we do to acquire forgiveness from you, so you could let us go? He said what all the other cultivators were thinking. Zhu Ke said with a smile, you should know that the Exploding Heavens faction is in dire need of spirit stones. If you could pay 100,000 best-grade spirit stones for each person, I'll put everything behind us. 100,000 best-grade spirit stones? Hearing his words, the cultivators couldn't help but feel heartache. The unit price was high enough. They would spend 2 or 3 million best-grade spirit stones to save all the people on their ship. The monk made his choice and threw a storage ring at Zhu Ke. Okay, this time, our Wind and Thunder Temple sent 10 people. Take this 1 million best-grade spirit stones. Almsgiver Zhu, please check it. Seeing that, The other cultivators stopped hesitating and followed suit, clenching their teeth. After all, they could trade their lives with spirit stones, which was better than sinking in the upflowing sea with the spirit stones. The Yun family has 30 people, so this is 3 million best grade spirit stones. The Foggy Stream sect has 23 people, so this is 2.3 million best grade spirit stones. The Drifting Cloud sect has 15 people, so this is 1.5 million best grade spirit stones. The Zhang family has 41 people, so this is 4.1 million best grade spirit stones. Soon, almost all families and sects paid their spirit stones, except for several sects that didn't take enough with them. Zhu Ke was quite pleased with this result. He received more than 40 million best grade spirit stones. Together with the spirit stones he earned before, he now had more than 100 million. It was a great resource, which was enough to support his cultivation until he reached the form synthesis stage. My fellow cultivator Zhu, can we leave now? Someone asked. They had paid their spirit stones, but they were still surrounded by Zhu Ke's submarines and aircraft carriers, which prevented them from playing with fire easily. However, Zhu Ke's reply was, definitely not. What? All the cultivators abruptly changed their expressions. Is he going to eat his words after receiving the spirit stones? Guys, please calm down. What I said was after receiving 100,000 best grade spirit stones for each person, I will put everything behind us. But I didn't say I would let you go, Zhu Ke said, smiling. But his smile was just nightmares for those cultivators. Furrowing her eyebrows, a holy virgin couldn't help but ask, what else do you want from us? Zhu Ke stopped smiling and said solemnly, good question. Actually, please don't be nervous. I will not hurt you. I just want to talk with you about a business. A business? His words confused everyone. How could this guy have a business to talk about? Could he want us to help him? Even Buttface, Liu Jingning and Wajud were confused. The Holy Virgin of the Yun family of the North Sea stepped out and said with a smile, since you said you want to talk about a business, please just say it. I am all ears and will do my best to help you. She had planned to get Zhu Ke's yacht, but now, she just wanted to leave. Zhu Ke really wanted to get help from them, so she would agree to his request. She knew she could eat her words after leaving that place. Seeing that, the rest of the cultivators followed her as if they had realized something. My fellow cultivator Zhu, what do you want to talk about? Please tell us. Right. Since you have put everything behind us, we will be friends in the future. Right. If you have troubles, please tell us, and we will do our best to help you. Exactly. That's also what the Foggy Stream sect will do. Zhu Ke was delighted after seeing the cultivators' supportive attitude. Do you really mean that? Great. Since all of you have agreed, I will just say it. The cultivators nodded their heads. Of course, just say it. Okay. Zhu Ke nodded heavily as if he was encouraged. Meanwhile, he took out a loudspeaker and shouted, guys, you are being robbed. Now, men stand on the left, women stand on the right, and lady boys stand in the middle. Crouch down, and put your hands behind your heads. Then, surrender all your storage rings and magical artifacts. Chapter 668. When I was young. At this moment, the endless upflowing sea went silent. Within several breaths, everyone's demeanor changed dramatically. First they were confused, then they were startled, and now they were about to spit blood. Robbery? The word echoed around their mind. They couldn't believe what they had heard. They had said pleasant words and surrendered their spirit stones. All their grudges had been written off. How could he rob them now? Liu Jingning and Buttface were also shocked by Zhu Ke's words. They thought Zhu Ke would be satisfied after getting the spirit stones. They hadn't expected him to continue making troubles. Is he really going to be the sworn enemy of every big family and sect? My fellow cultivator Zhu, what? Do you mean by that? The Holy Virgin of the Yun family from the North Sea asked curiously. We agreed to write off all grudges, right? Zhu Ke smiled and replied with a square nod of his head. Yes, we've written off all grudges. However, I dream of being a thief. Please don't ask me why I want to rob you, because I'm going to realize my dream. That does not conflict with writing off our grudges, right? Your dream? To be a robber? What the hell are you talking about? The Holy Virgin of the Yun family from the North Sea couldn't stop her eyelids from twitching and had to hold in her explosive anger. The rest onlookers, completely annoyed by Zhu Kei's words, watched him angrily. TSK TSK TSK, this young man is really shameless. He is damn too shameless. Wan Jud sighed, shaking his head. The new generations could always excel the old ones. Zhu Kei proudly jutted his chin out, puffed up his chest. Those who dream and dare to pursue their dreams are most honorable. Don't stare at me with those weird expressions. Holy SHT. The onlookers tried hard not to slap him to death. Could being a robber be considered a dream? How dare you ask us to respect you? You're really outrageous. That's enough. Stop your nonsense. Now surrender your property or I'll fire at you. Zhu Kei started to urge, not wanting to waste time here. Everyone frowned at him. Suddenly, an old man surprised them all by stepping out. He solemnly said, "My young friend Zhu, don't push us too far." That's the elder of the Zhu family from the North Sea. I didn't know he was also here. Many people calmed down and started to chat in a low voice. Everyone knows the Zhu family is backed by the Rock tribe of the North Sea. Now the Zhu family has stepped out. I guess this guy should show some respect. You're telling me the Rock tribe of the North Sea inherited the ancient bloodline completely, which is quite rare in the four continents. The Heaven Horn Ox tribe is powerful, but they're just insects in front of the Rock tribe. I don't believe that guy can now refuse to show his due respect. It's a pity the nine-tailed demon fox tribe isn't here. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been pushed into such a miserable state. Come on, with the ancient bloodline, why would they want the pathetic living holy water in this mystery land? Anyway, now that the Zhu family has stepped out, I guess this trouble will be solved. The elder of the Zhu family also stared at Zhu Kei. He confidently said, "It was our fault for attacking you before. However, we have compensated you with spirit stones and you have agreed to write off the grudges. Now you want to rob us aggressively. You've gone too far. Stop now. Otherwise, you won't find a single place to hide outside the mystery land." His words were quite reasonable, but everyone thought the threat was just an overbearing formality. They didn't believe Zhu Kei truly dared to offend all of them. If he did, they would definitely kill him once he left the mystery land. Actually, even if Zhu Kei didn't rob them now, once they'd surrendered millions of spirit stones to compensate him, they had made up their minds to kill him and take them back. Zhu Kei had seen their true intents, so he decided to bleed them out. Anyway, he'd already offended them, so why shouldn't he get more things from them? He couldn't throw away this opportunity. Actually, I'm bullying you. He laughed. You can fight me if you can't accept it. Zhu Kei smirked coldly. He was never frightened in such situations. Even after the mystery land, he would be confident in confronting all the cultivators in this world. He had been planning to start his secluded cultivation in the third layer after obtaining the living holy water. 2 years later, once he left the mystery land, he would reach the form synthesis stage. At that time, even the big families and sects wouldn't want to seek revenge from him, and he would punish them one by one. He wanted to inform the world that Zhu Kei of the Exploding Heavens faction was not someone who could be trifled with easily. He also wanted to inform the world that Zhu Kei of the Exploding Heavens faction was even more ruthless than Wan Jud. My young friend, you're too arrogant. The elder of the Zhu family scolded with a gloomy face. Don't think that no one in this world can take you down. If the Rock tribe decides to attack you, you'll face certain death. The other members of the Zhu family stood behind the elder and stared with dark faces. They started to scold Zhu Kei as well. They couldn't stand it anymore. Zhu Kei, don't be so arrogant. You're just an ordinary person. If we weren't on the upflowing sea, you wouldn't be qualified to even talk to us. You'd better stop now. Otherwise, you're gonna get yourself killed. If you continue to treat us like this, the Rock tribe of the North Sea will hunt you forever. The Zhu family was formidable throughout the 4 continents. An ordinary person were daring to threaten them by taking advantage of the restrictive spells in the upflowing sea. This made them quite unhappy. However, They didn't expect Zhuge would still have so much arrogance after their elder had stepped out to talk him down. To their surprise, Zhuge's actions became even more overbearing. Whoosh! Zhuge waved his hand. Then, 3 submarines came over and simultaneously aimed at the big ship of the Zhu family. Their expressions changed. The Zhu family were as pale as ghosts. They said in surprise, "What, are you going to do?" They now believed that the rock tribe would even scare this guy off. Zhuge arrogantly stood with his hands behind his back. A towering moment gushed from his body. "The Zhu family and the rock tribe are nothing to me. My Tao is to do anything at will. If you go against my will, you are obstacles for me and I will destroy you. You do not comprehend the strength of the Exploding Heavens faction." Boom! As soon as he finished his words, a large sound came from the upflowing sea. Several torpedoes smashed into the big ship of the Zhu family, tearing it to pieces. Zhuge's sonorous and majestic words kept echoing in the ears of the cultivators. At this moment, all the big families and sects of the 4 continents, including the Zhang family and the Gong family of the East Continent, as well as the Yun family of the North Sea, were greatly shocked. Even Wanjud froze. Now they realized that the young man in front of them was far more formidable than they could have possibly expected. Chapter 669. The traditional and formal way of robbery. The Zhu family was nothing. The rock tribe was nothing. After saying that, Zhuge eliminated the Zhu family's fleet neatly. His resolute and ruthless killing astounded everyone. Zhuge was just an ordinary person. The other people were cultivators, most of whom were at the void training stage and enjoyed the extraordinary positions. They were shocked by Zhuge's behavior. If they became enemies of the Zhu family, they had to consider the rock tribe behind the Zhu family. They wouldn't make a big fuss as long as the issue wasn't very serious. However, as an ordinary person, Zhuge's behavior could be overbearing. All of them were detained by this young man and waiting for their liquidation because they participated in the attack. The Zhu family didn't want to be humiliated by an ordinary person, so they had tried to scare Zhuge away. However, what they got was the same fate as the Heaven Horn Ox tribe and the prevailing Wind Pavilion. The cultivators were terrified, except for Wanjud. They hadn't seen such a ruthless person in many years. Still more ominous, this young man was crueler than Wanjud. Anyone who went against his will would be killed. Only the Celestial Emperor could do that. The atmosphere in the area was a little creepy, except for those who were gasping. Nobody dared to speak casually. The system's warning tone kept echoing in Zhuge's mind. He earned more than 4,000 acting tough points by destroying the Zhu family's ship, putting him up to about 60,000 acting tough points total. It was a big number, and Zhuge received it with his mind at ease. Actually, he wouldn't kill anyone who went against his will as those cultivators thought. The Taoist connotation he cultivated would do anything at will. Those who did not offend would not be offended. Those who offended would be killed. The Zhu family had participated in the attack on Zhuge. He just planned to punish them by robbing their spirit stones before putting everything behind them. However, the Zhu family had tried to threaten Zhuge with the rock tribe, which annoyed him. Zhuge was not intimidated easily. To threaten him with the rock tribe was even less effective than asking several holy virgins to commend his handsomeness, which might make him happy enough to let everyone go. However, the Zhu family was used to bullying others. They had threatened Zhuge with the rock tribe, so Zhuge had to kill them all. It was a dog-eat-dog world. One who chose to make concession after being threatened would be bullied and threatened forever. Zhuge knew this rule well, therefore, he was as tough and ruthless as he was in the Five Elements mountain. Buttface was beside Zhuge and said with a smirk, "Little brat, you are really reckless. Now, you have offended all 4 continents like I did." Liu Jingning stared at Buttface speechlessly. She turned to Zhuge worriedly and said, "You punish them in such a ruthless way. What if they came to seek revenge after leaving the Mystery Land?" Zhuge turned to Liu Jingning and replied with a smile, "I'll kill anyone who comes to seek revenge." His words stunned Liu Jingning, who said nothing after that. It was quite unrealistic to say he would kill anyone who came to seek revenge. However, she got a vague feeling that Zhuge could really do that. Wanjud's voice came in, saying, "Young man, What I want to say is that after leaving this mystery land, I can't prevent so many people from attacking you." The old man was sending the message with a serious facial expression while squatting on the bow of a ship. "Before long, the shackle that locked the 4 continents will be opened. A great change will happen. My master instructed me to keep a low profile. I can't offend the families and sects in this world, otherwise, I will suffer great loss in the future." Zuke was stunned. Furrowing his eyebrows, he asked, "What do you mean?" "What is the shackle for the 4 continents?" Wanjud replied with a shrug. "It is a long story, so I won't tell it. Anyway, I suggest you'd better keep a low profile, and avoid becoming the enemy of this world. The Golden Age is about to begin. However, before the commencement of a Golden Age, there is always a chaotic period." Hey, old beggar. Have you heard a saying?" Zuke smiled. "What?" Wanjud was stunned. Zuke said with a faint smile, "Heroes emerge in troubled times, but the Golden Age is full of mediocre officials. Since the chaotic period is upcoming, I should work harder, otherwise, I won't be able to conquest the Golden Age." He didn't care about the chaotic period or the Golden Age. He just wanted to get a firm foothold in this world to continue his acting tough business. Then, he would take Sun Yunlin, Madame Ye, Sulinger, and Suziaki to this continent, which was full of magnificent spiritual qi, to continue their cultivation. Heroes emerge in troubled times? Wanjud was absent-minded because of Zuke's words. He then smiled and shook his head. "Young man, you are too ambitious, and your thought is too simple. Once the chaotic period starts, even I have to hide. The battlefield at that time belongs to experts like my master." Zuke was shocked. Could there be more than one formidable powerhouse like the beautiful Taoist nun? After thinking it over, Zuke felt it was quite normal that extremely powerful experts were hiding in this time-honored world of cultivators. He didn't want to waste time thinking about what the world would be like in the future. If he was not powerful enough, he could perform sexual favors for Wanjud's beautiful master to get protection. After all, flirtation was a kind of skill, and survival with one's appearance was a kind of honor. At the thought of this, Zuke touched his face and smiled, satisfied. At that moment, the cultivators, who fixed their eyes on Zuke, saw his smile. "Oh, no. Is he going to kill someone again?" The Holy Virgin of the Yun family quickly threw more than 10 storage rings to Zuke. "My fellow cultivator Zu, these are all spirit stones and magical artifacts of the Yun family." At first, she had thought Zuke was just an inexperienced, reckless young man. She had planned to lure him to the North Sea with her charm, so they could forcibly take away his yacht. Now, however, Zuke was a devil lord to her. She deemed him as a person with the same status as hers. She didn't dare underestimate him anymore. Among her peers, she hadn't seen anyone as ruthless. The Yun family's action startled the rest of the cultivators, especially those who came from some small sects. They started to urge their sect members to surrender their storage rings. After all, the Yun family had given in. The small families and sects didn't dare continue their objection. "My fellow cultivator Zu, these are the storage rings of our Foggy Stream sect. These are the storage rings of our Drifting Cloud sect. These are the storage rings of the Lin family." All families and sects, big or small, had given in and surrendered all their spirit stones and magical artifacts. Even the Zhang family and the Gong family surrendered their belongings with darkened faces. Zhang Yushuan powerhouses of the Gong family had gotten used to being extorted by Zuke like this. Every time they met him, from the stone-cutting convention to the Celestial Burial Valley, they would always suffer financial loss. An elder of the Zhang family couldn't help but curse as he sent messages to other members of the family. "Damn, I guess this guy has stayed too long with Zhang Hongyan. He got evilness from her, which caused great loss to us." Zhang Yushu's facial expression changed drastically. Finally, he clenched his teeth and said, "Let's just treat it as losing money to avoid misfortune. We should stop seeking revenge upon him in the future. Otherwise, the Zhang family couldn't afford the loss." A young man of the Zhang family asked ruefully, "Grand Elder, how does this go?" As one of the overlords in the East Continent, Is the mighty Zhang family going to stay out of his way in the future? Zhang Yushu replied angrily, yes, from now on, we should all stay out of his way and not provoke him. Everyone on the ship of the Zhang family was shocked. Zhang Yushu said coldly, at least we should avoid provoking that little bastard before the connotation of our Zhang family decides to reappear in this world. All members of the Zhang family replied in unison, as you wish. Finally, after all the families and sects surrendered their belongings, the atmosphere became tense again. Nobody knew whether Zhu Ke would kill them all after robbing their spirit stones. Some of them were shocked that an ordinary person could decide the life or death of the majestic powerhouses outside the Mystery Land. It was so sad, annoying and helpless. Seeing their facial expressions, Zhu Ke also knew in his heart that this was the effect of extremely powerful strength. As long as you were powerful enough, nobody dared to bully you. He had realized this effect previously with the submarines, the aircraft carriers, and the upflowing sea. Once they left that area, his intimidation would disappear immediately. However, he firmly believed he would regain this power, which could decide others' fate, when he had extraordinary strength again one day. At the thought of this, Zhu Ke smiled and said, thanks for your cooperation. You know, credibility is the most important fact for the Exploding Heavens faction to do business in this world. Also, we always use the traditional and formal way of robbery. As for performing indecent assault on women after robbing their properties, before he finished his words, the cultivators totally freaked out and almost spat blood. Damn, are you going to rape our women after robbing us? Chapter 670. Touch the sky. The situation became weird again. In front of so many people with shocked, angry expressions, Zhu Ke was still quite calm. Smiling, he said, indecently assaulting women after robbing their property is something we'll never do. You won't? Hearing his words, the cultivators sighed in relief. Some of the holy virgins, who were as pale as sheets, felt the color return to their cheeks. The noble and mighty holy virgins didn't need to worry about Zhu Ke raping them. If Zhu Ke tried, they would have to protect themselves by fighting him. After all, they really didn't want to provoke the destructive submarines in the sea. Why are you looking at me like that? Do you really think I will do that nasty thing? Zhu Ke started to scold the cultivators seriously. Let me tell you, it would be impossible for me to indecently assault a woman. I won't do that once in my lifetime. The Exploding Heavens faction robbed your property to assist the poor. Raping is something lunatics do and doesn't conform to the moral standards of the Exploding Heavens faction. All the cultivators curled their lips. They didn't dare say anything and pretended to not hear Zhu Ke. They believed it would be quite normal for a man like Zhu Ke to do those nasty things. Liu Jingning also looked at Zhu Ke thoughtfully, a faint smile on her face. Her gaze made Zhu Ke quite nervous. Little sister, why are you looking at me like that? He asked with wide eyes. Do you really think I'm a man who could do that? Come here. Let's have a deep discussion by touching each other's conscience. He would truly never rape a woman. He only said those words to make the cultivators sick. Raping was too low for him. Only a pathetic person would do that. An expert or professor like Zhu Ke, who declared himself an old driver, was characterized by brainless and reckless behavior. However, he insisted on winning the hearts of girls through flirtation. No matter how wicked he was, he would never do something like raping a woman. Little quack, I didn't say a word. Why are you being so defensive? Liu Jingning asked with a smile. Her flirting eyes and red lips were very attractive. I know you didn't say anything, but your thoughts were revealed through your eyes. Zhu Ke said with his chin up and chest out. Really? Li Jingning asked with a smile. Then you need to closely watch what else my eyes reveal. Liu Jingning abruptly started approaching Zhu Ke. Her extremely beautiful face almost touched Zhu Ke's face. Her watery eyes were clear and attractive. Her fragrant breath and body scent smacked into Zhu Ke's face. Holy SHT! Zhu Ke's eyes widened and he almost lost control of his body. He hurriedly shouted, Little sister, don't cross the line. It's quite dangerous to do so in public. Really? Why is it dangerous? Liu Jingning asked, Still smirking, Zhu Kei's expression faltered for a moment. It's very dangerous. There are 206 bones in a human's body. Now I have 207 bones because of you. Liu Jingning was instantly stunned. What? You grew another bone? Where is it? She'd originally planned to make fun of Zhu Kei. However, she didn't expect his response to be so serious. How could he grow one more bone? As she finished her question, she noticed Zhu Kei covering his lower body with his hand. Suddenly, Liu Jingning realized. She flushed and stopped asking after quickly spitting Zhu Kei. This additional bone, Zhu Kei said confidently, is called the Sovereign Bone, and is really powerful. It can even heal the wounds of women. He wore an open expression and stood poised like a gentleman. You're not allowed to speak anymore. I don't want to talk to you. Liu Jingning rolled her eyes at Zhu Kei and turned around. She didn't want to chat with Zhu Kei any longer. He was too shameless. Zhu Kei smiled proudly and started to look around. The onlookers also saw Zhu Kei was chatting with Liu Jingning but didn't know what they were talking about. When Zhu Kei's eyes snapped toward them, they became nervous again. My fellow cultivators, the Holy Virgin Liu just interceded on your behalf and asked me to stop. So, I won't trouble you anymore. After all, out of blows friendship grows. From now on we will be friends. If we meet again, I will appreciate your guidance and assistance. With a laugh, Zhu Kei waved his hand to withdraw the submarines and aircraft carriers. The cultivators also hurriedly replied, You flatter us. My fellow cultivator Zhu, your generosity makes us feel diminished by comparison. If we meet in the future, we would also appreciate your guidance and assistance. Although they said this, deep in their hearts all of them cursed Zhu Kei. You f***ing beast, I'd better pray you won't meet us outside the Mystery Land. Zhu Kei knew these people were quite unhappy. However, he had to let them go because he only had a limited amount of torpedoes. Also, the rental period of submarines and aircraft carriers had almost expired. He couldn't kill all of them. Even he could kill them all, he wouldn't benefit from it. Others would sooner or later learn of what had happened today. He couldn't change the fact that he had become the enemy of this world. Therefore, he didn't care whether he made more enemies. Finally, when the submarines dived into the sea and the aircraft carriers went far away, the cultivators sighed relief. Some of them started driving their ships to leave. Others continued going forward in the upflowing sea, for they still hadn't forgotten the living holy water. Zhu Kei didn't care where those cultivators were headed. He turned around and, with an embarrassed smile at Liu Jingning, said, Little sister, I'm afraid this time your Utopia faction was really implicated. You could ask them to come with us. Don't worry, I sent them a message and asked them to leave. I guess they probably left the Mystery Land by now. No one dares to attack the Utopia faction as long as they can go back to the East Continent. As for the living holy water, I'll leave it to you. I only need a few to accomplish my task. Awesome. You're really considerate, Zhu Kei said in surprise. Liu Jingning had asked the members of the Utopia faction to leave in advance, which he hadn't realized. The timing was perfect. You left me no choice. I knew you would cause a lot of trouble. I told them that if they ever run into you again, they should just turn around and escape without hesitation. Wow. You are really awesome. Jingning isn't only beautiful and sharp, she is also smart and wild. Stop being so talkative. Let's go for the living holy water. Ha, let's go. I'll bring you to touch the sky. Zhu Kei smiled and asked Liu Jingning and Buttface to board the helicopter with a wave of his hand. Seeing that, Wanju jumped back from the neighboring ship immediately. He jumped into the helicopter and grinned mischievously. Young man, give me a ride. No way. Now get out. Zhu Kei's eyes widened immediately. He was about to kick Wanju out. Wanju shouted, Little brat, don't forget that the Carefree building said they would give you an ancient book. They've left. You could go after them and give up the living holy water, or you could take me to grab the living holy water. If I don't help you when we leave the Mystery Land, it will be very difficult for you to get the ancient book from them. Okay. Zhu Kei replied with a smile. Then it's a deal. I'll take you to get the living holy water. You help me drive away the flies and get the ancient book from Dong Zhenji. Wanju was stunned. Little brat, he said suspiciously, You were pretending to drive me off so that I would make an offer, right? SHT, you just scammed me. No, you need to give me an explanation. Zuke pulled the control lever as he waved his hand. Old beggar, you can't call me a schemer. Actually, if you hadn't made your offer just now, I would have kicked you into the upflowing sea. FCK. Wanjud cursed. Your explanation sucks. You're too damn mean. FCKU. Zuke cursed back with wide eyes. You're mean. You're the meanest. The old beggar is even meaner. You're invincibly mean. You're even meaner than Buttface. FCK. I have nothing to do with your argument. Buttface howled. You two are mean bastards. Ouch. It hurts. Hurts. Don't hit my face. The helicopter took off amongst the noisy curses and started flying toward the first small island in the upflowing sea. Staring at the horizon, Zuke was quite expectant. As long as he could obtain the living holy water, he could revive Zhao, and he could start the secluded cultivation in the third layer contentedly. He would try to reach the void training stage and then he could rescue Zhang Hongyan from the ancient bronze hall. The path to the future was paved for him. When he reached the consummation of the void training stage, he could integrate with his Taoist body to reach the form synthesis stage. Then, he would be invincible to the world no matter how many enemies he had. A greater and bolder way of tough acting awaited. Chapter 671, Holy SHT. When the cultivators saw the helicopter roaring past them, they started to grimace. It's over. We have to return empty-handed. Let's just go home. He'll arrive at the first island with that helicopter, and there will be nothing left when we get there. Don't worry. No matter how fast he is, he can't take away all the living holy water. Exactly. Don't forget we still have 2 months. If he takes away all the living holy water now, the living holy trees will still continue generating it. We could stay on the islands for 10 to 20 days till enough of it regenerates. Haha, that's a good idea. At least we won't come back empty-handed. After reaching a tacit agreement, sea cultivators continued to move forward with their ships. They all, in fact, had sinister plans. They knew well enough that even if they stayed on the islands for several weeks, the living holy water generated from the living holy trees would definitely not be enough to supply all of them. It would likely be enough for only one family or sect. When the time came, a fierce battle would be inevitable. The helicopter, piloted by Zuke, flew for several hours. The sky had become pitch black, and was full of shiny stars. The moonlight was so beautiful. Sitting in the co-pilot's seat, Liu Jingning stared at the night sky with a smile as if she was really enjoying the beautiful scenery. Wanjud and Buttface were both asleep and snuggling each other in the rear cabin of the helicopter. Little Quack, if we continue to cultivate, will we be able to pluck down the night stars with our hands one day? Liu Jingning asked softly, her eyes strained on the lights in the sky. I don't know if we will be able to pluck the stars at that point, but I've heard that someone strong enough would be able to smash stars with a punch. Zuke replied seriously. Liu Jingning turned around and rolled her eyes at Zuke. Stone-hearted little brat, why would we smash the beautiful stars? There are so many beautiful things in this world. However, people only cherish them once they are lost. Zuke exclaimed as his long-lost life on Earth came to mind. Liu Jingning was stunned by Zuke's words. Have you lost anything beautiful? She watched him with her beautiful eyes, sensing his loneliness. Yes. Zuke nodded with a faint smile. I lost my hometown, my family, my friends and those exhausting, meaningful days. But I'm doing well now. I have new friends and I've acquired new strength. Sometimes I miss my family and hometown, which is always filled with a spring breeze. Zuke spoke of his attachment to his past life under the temptation of the night sky. In his past life, he was an honors student with a beautiful younger sister, a bunch of good friends and a beautiful girlfriend. It was a pity that he had been knocked into this world in an inexplicable car accident. When he had first arrived in this world, he was quite curious about everything here. However, he couldn't help but become homesick over time. It was just like a vacation. At first, the person is excited about everything. After a while, they become homesick. The only difference was that people on vacation could go home easily. It was not easy for Zuke, who was on an extremely permanent vacation, to return to Earth. What? Zuke was surprised when a soft, small hand touched his face gently. The warmth in the palm made him quite comfortable. If you are homesick, just find some time to go back to your hometown, Liu Jingning said as she looked at Zuke gently. This was the first time she had seen Zuke look so lonely. She thought Zuke was missing his hometown and friends in the Five Elements mountain. There was tenderness and even a strand of mother's love in her heart. Right, I will go back sooner or later. Zuke nodded seriously. He knew he was not able to go back to Earth even if he reached the form synthesis stage. However, according to his cultivation speed, he would realize his goal one day. He decided to go back to Earth to call on his family and friends when they were no longer young. If you go back, please take me with you. I like beautiful things and also want to have a look at your hometown, which is always filled with a spring breeze. Zuke smiled and turned to her. Little sister, your words remind me of a saying in my hometown. What saying? Spring breezes in Q is not as good as sleeping with you. You are asking for a good smack. Ouch, ouch, it hurts. Let go. Don't pinch my handsome face. In the gray dawn of the next day, they could vaguely see an island in the distance. The island was small, about as large as a basketball court, and it was also quite empty. A small tree in the middle of the island stood out very prominently. We're nearly there, Liu Jingning said, staring forward. Zuke nodded. As the helicopter approached the island, Zuke could see the small tree clearly, which surprised him a bit. The small tree was covered by flourishing branches and leaves. Each green leaf was dazzling. Radiance fell from them to the ground like moonlight. The trunk was golden as if it was gold-plated, which was quite amazing. Moreover, a crystal-clear lake was under the tree. It seemed the small tree had been planted in the water when seen from afar. However, Zuke knew that this lake was formed by the living holy water mentioned in the rumors, which was actually the pool of radiance falling from the green leaves. I smell the fragrance of the living holy water. Buttface howled as he suddenly awoke. Beside him, Wanjud also sat up abruptly and pushed away an unknown hard object behind his back. He looked down through the helicopter's porthole. His eyes shined excitedly. Great. After 100 years, I can enjoy tea brewed with the living holy water again. Brew tea with this thing? Good idea. Let's just take the living holy tree away and plant it somewhere else, Zuke said excitedly. Wanjud and Buttface tossed their disdainful eyes at Zuke. Little brat, you're too greedy. Buttface howled. This living holy tree is something not included in the category of the five elements. Since its seed falls to the ground, nobody can move it one bit. If they could be moved, I would have taken them long ago for myself, Wanjud sneered. Even Liu Jingning also shook her head slightly. According to the historical records, many years ago, several powerhouses at the crossing calamity stage tried to take the living holy tree away. However, all their efforts were in vain. Cultivators at the great vehicle stage, even my master, couldn't move the living holy tree a bit, let alone anyone at the crossing calamity stage. Wanjud shook his head and continued. I've heard that the living holy trees stem from living holy seeds that fell from the spiritual realm, which are not in the category of the five elements. Only celestials can move them. In addition, one could obtain a divine material by refining the living holy trees, which is a main material to refine the space-breaking spell. The space-breaking spell? Zuke was surprised for he had never heard of such a spell. Wanjud grinned. Hey, you certainly don't know of this spell for even I have never seen it performed. However, my master used to say this kind of spell appeared in the ancient time. It could tear apart the void and let the user roam the vast starry sky. What? Zuke was greatly shocked. Tear apart the void and roam the starry sky? Does it mean I could go back to Earth with the space-breaking spell? Zuke's heartbeat quickened. It was exciting for him to think he might be able to go back to Earth. He was so desperate to go back that no matter how slim the chance was, he still wanted to try. Those living holy trees are mine. Zuke shouted. Wake up, stop your daydreams. Wanjud suddenly splashed cold water on the distracted man. Zuke ignored him and directed the helicopter to the island to land. He was very excited. The living holy water and the living holy tree were right in front of him. One could be used to revive Zhao. The other one could help him return to Earth. This was definitely double bliss. Whoosh! Zuke turned himself into a strand of light and dashed toward the lake in the middle of the island before Buttface, Wanjud and Liu Jingning. Ding! Living holy water detected. Is the host going to extract it? The system's warning tone came in before Zuke had time to react. Yes. Zuke replied without hesitation. Meanwhile, he looked at the living holy tree as he considered how to take it away. Boom! Suddenly, the lake under the living holy tree raised straight from the ground as if it had been turned into a transparent water dragon. Damn, little brat, what have you done? Buttface and Wanjud shouted in surprise. Growl. Almost at the same time, the water dragon formed by the living holy water roared and tried to attack Zuke rampantly. Zuke was surprised. As he was about to retreat, the system's warning tone came in. Extraction of the living holy water has failed. The system was blocked. Activate the revenge function. What the hell? The revenge function? Boom. Dazed, he heard a loud sound. The next moment, the living holy tree was uprooted to the sky by a tremendous force. Holy SHT, holy SHT, holy SHT. Wanjud and Buttface screamed. How could this be? Liu Jingning couldn't believe her eyes. Chapter 672, The Hope of Returning to the Earth. Awesome, my system. Zuke was shocked. The system was really horrible. It was quite vindictive. After being impeded during the extraction of the living holy water, it just uprooted the entire living holy tree. Everyone knew that even cultivators at the great vehicle stage couldn't shake a living holy tree. However, the system had just easily pulled it out. Horrible, formidable, awesome. These adjectives flashed through Zuke's mind. Then, he realized belatedly that the system's style was quite like his. His heart filled with ecstasy. Before that, he had still been anxious about how to get the living holy tree. Now the system had just done it for him and he could reap what he hadn't sown. The cheating feeling made him sense the system's friendliness again. It turned out sometimes the system was not unscrupulous. Little brat, how? Did you realize that? Buttface asked. How did you pull out that living holy tree so easily? He glanced at Zuke in confusion. Wanjud and Liu Jingning also stared at Zuke in disbelief. After all, 1 moment ago they had still been talking about how steadfast the living holy tree was. The next moment, Zuke had rushed over and pulled the tree out without hesitation. Anyone might be startled by his actions. Ahem. Zuke cleared his throat proudly. Let's keep a low profile. It's just a living holy tree. A piece of cake for me. It's impossible. How did you do that? Wanjud still couldn't believe it. Simple. I casually pulled it out. Zuke replied calmly. Wanjud and Buttface stared at him. Casually pulled it out? Are you kidding? Do you think you have Herculean strength? That's possible. I remember when I was born, I pointed at the sky with one hand and pointed at the earth with the other hand. In the sky, the word powerful drifted along behind the word handsome. It was then I knew that God was telling me I had been born a handsome and powerful man. Zuke declared self-righteously. Buttface, Wanjud and Liu Jingning were quite speechless for they knew that he was bluffing again. Something's wrong. I guess there was something wrong with this living holy tree. Let's go to the second island now. I also want to have a try. Wanjud said eagerly. He wondered if the living holy trees were even that powerful, and wanted to try pulling one out himself. Buttface nodded. Exactly. I also want to try. Zuke sighed. Don't get your hopes up. You won't find another person in the world who is this handsome and bestowed with Herculean strength. Finally, Zuke waved his hand to put the living holy water and the living holy tree into the system package. In the system package, it seemed the entire living holy tree froze. The light on its leaves didn't flow anymore. However, the tree was still full of vigor. Living holy tree, a tree grown from the germinated living holy seed. which can absorb the energy of the 5 elements but is not within the category of the 5 elements. This tree grows every 1,000 years and reaches its mature period after 10,000 years. The mature living holy tree can generate the living holy water and can be used to refine and extract the living holy pith. After reading the description of the living holy tree, Zhu Ke felt his heart beat faster. The living holy pith extracted from the living holy tree was the divine material mentioned by Wajud, which was one of the main ingredients to refine the space-breaking spell. System: search the space-breaking spell or the different methods to refine the space-breaking spell. A moment later, the system replied, after upgrading the system to version 10.0. The host can purchase the manual on how to refine the space-breaking spell in the system store. After upgrading the system to version 20.0, the host can purchase the space-breaking spell directly from the system store. Holy SHT. Why version 10.0 again? Zhu Ke's lips twitched. This was really deceptive. When he'd been trapped in the elixir field of the beautiful Taoist nun and he'd wanted to buy a celestial grade divine escape spell, the system had told him to upgrade to version 10.0 first. He didn't expect to be asked to upgrade the system to version 10.0 again while inquiring about the space-breaking spell. Even if he could upgrade the system to version 10.0, he could only purchase the manual on how to refine the space-breaking spell. If he wanted to buy the spell directly, he needed to upgrade the system to version 20.0. This was outrageous. The last time he'd upgraded the system it had used up all his hard-won acting tough points. He'd spent 20,000 acting tough points to upgrade it from version 3.0 to version 4.0. Then, he spent 40,000 acting tough points to upgrade the system from 4.0 to the current version 5.0. The required acting tough points for each system upgrade was always doubled compared to the value needed in the previous upgrade. In other words, he would need 80,000 acting tough points to upgrade the system to version 6.0. If he wanted to upgrade the system from version 6.0 to version 7.0, he would spend 160,000 acting tough points. If he wanted to upgrade the system from version 5.0 to version 10.0, he would need to spend 80,000 plus 160,000 plus 320,000 plus 640,000 plus 1,280,000 points, which equaled 2,480,000 acting tough points. 2,480,000 acting tough points. This was a horribly astronomical figure for Zhu Ke. Zhu Ke's excited heart immediately fell. Oh, no, I still have a long journey of acting tough ahead of me. It's just a daydream for me to return to Earth soon. He felt quite awesome for earning over 50,000 acting tough points in the Mystery Land. At this rate, he would need at least 10 years to scrape together over 2 million acting tough points while earning and spending at the same time. Hell, I have to work harder at acting tough. I should never slack off. I should act tough more forcefully. Zhu Ke felt his teeth clench together. With heavy responsibilities on his shoulder, he would work harder to act tough and do his best to scrape together the required acting tough points as soon as possible, so that he could refine the space-breaking spell and return to Earth with it. Ding! The warning tone of the system came on. The system has detected that the extraction of the living holy water is complete. Now all the ingredients are complete. Is the host going to refine the 9 revolutions revival fluid now? Yes. Zhu Ke replied immediately. Zhu Ke set aside the plan to return to the Earth and focused on reviving Zhao again. Anyway, he couldn't return to the Earth in a short time. The most urgent issues were to revive Zhao and then find a place to start his secluded cultivation. Ding! However, just at this moment, the system's warning tone came in again. The system detected the host's current position doesn't have enough spiritual chi. The refinery of the 9 revolutions revival fluid can't be initiated. The host must find a place with sufficient spiritual chi for it. Holy Sh, isn't the spiritual chi here sufficient? Zhu Ke asked. The upflowing sea was quite dangerous. However, as a place connected to the 3rd layer, the spiritual chi here was several times denser than that outside. If this couldn't do, Where could he go? Ding. The density of spiritual chi here is about 30%. The refinery of the 9 revolutions revival fluid should be performed at a place where the spiritual chi density is at least 50%. The denser the spiritual chi is, the better the body reshaped by the 9 revolutions revival fluid will be. The system finished. Zhu Kai frowned. He'd finally managed to scrape together all the required ingredients. He couldn't allow the refinery to be delayed because of insufficient spiritual chi. Moreover, if he could find a place with denser spiritual chi, Zhao's reshaped body would be better. He had to be scrupulous for this issue. He turned to Buttface instantly. Buttface, you said the 3rd layer is more suitable than here for cultivation. What about the spiritual chi in the 3rd layer? The spiritual chi? Buttface scratched his head. It's good and a little bit denser than here, but the difference is negligible. I mean the 3rd layer is quiet, which is suitable for cultivation. More importantly, treasuries can be found there, so it is quite suitable for our treasure hunt expenditure. Zhu Kai began to worry. Only a little bit denser? According to Buttface's description, the content of the spiritual chi in the 3rd layer was at most 35%, which was far from enough to refine the 9 revolutions revival fluid. Little brat, let's go to the other islands to collect the living holy water and the living holy trees. Buttface urged. We should leave nothing for those following us. He still wanted to try pulling out the living holy tree on the 2nd island. It's not an urgent issue. Now, please tell me where the place with the densest spiritual chi in the mystery land is. Buttface didn't know what to say. After all, he was not familiar with this place either. Beside him, Wanjud grew a mischievous smile. Hey, young man, your question is really stupid. The place with the densest spiritual chi in this mystery land is, obviously, the top layer. However, even I couldn't approach that place. You can just forget it because we don't have enough time. Hearing that, Zhu Kai fell silent. What Wanjud said was correct. He was not strong enough to reach the top layer before the massive mystery land closed. However, besides the top layer, there is only one place with dense spiritual chi, which is my master's elixir fields. After all, that place is connected to the top layer and is really full of spiritual chi. It's a pity that I can't enter. Otherwise, if I could stay in that place for several decades, I would progress in my cultivation. Wanjud finished. His words made Zhu Kai's eyes immediately light up. When he'd entered the elixir fields, he could sense the formidably dense spiritual chi there. The content of the spiritual chi definitely exceeded 50%. That was why so many elixirs could grow there. However, Wanjud's master was still there. Should he sneak into the place again? Zhu Kai hesitated. After all, he had seriously offended the extremely beautiful and powerful Taoist nun. If he returned to that place, he could be slapped to death by her. But if he refused to go back, Zhao's revival would be delayed again, and it would be much more difficult to find a place with dense spiritual chi outside the mystery land. No, it can't be delayed anymore. I should revive Zhao now. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. I'm ready to pay any price. She's just a powerful woman. She's just a beautiful woman. Could I really be scared off by her? At the thought of this, Zhu Kai turned around and went into the helicopter again. Then, he looked at Liu Jingning, Buttface and Wanjud. Please wait here for me. I have business to deal with and I'll be back soon. Wait. Where are you going, young man? I want to go with you. Wanjud also tried to board the helicopter for he worried Zhu Kai would be killed as soon as he left the upflowing sea. Don't follow me. I am going to FCK your master. No, I am going to find your master, Zhu Kai said with a wave of his hand. He pulled the control lever and rapidly flew away. Chapter 673, The Taoist Nun Sunk Asleep. After leaving the first island, Zhu Kai continued flying toward the seashore for an entire day, and he was spotted by many ships. The cultivators on these ships were quite confused and wondered why he had left so suddenly. However, they didn't want to waste time figuring out the reason. They knew the opportunity to occupy the first island had arisen after Zhu Kai's departure. After waiting on that island for 10 to 20 days, new living holy water would generate from the living holy tree, they started to think about how they would deal with the cultivators from the other sects and families. Zhu Kei's departure caused many people to start preparing for a great battle before landing on the island. After one day of flying, Zhu Kei finally arrived at the seashore. Many cultivators who had returned to the seashore from the upflowing sea saw the helicopter above them. Some cultivators' eyes lit up as they decided to shoot down Zhu Kei's helicopter. When they were in the upflowing sea, they hadn't dared to use magic arts. Now that they were on shore, nothing could stop them from attacking Zhu Kei. Damn, let's fire at the helicopter and shoot him down. HMPH, what an arrogant guy. He even dares to show up alone. This means he doesn't take us seriously. Kill him. All at once, many people jumped into the sky and started to attack Zhu Kei with magic arts. Whoosh, a poker-faced figure appeared at the door of the helicopter and peered in. This guy wore a black robe and his hair was snowy white. An enormous heavenly thunder seal floated above his head. With two Buddha's fiery lotuses in his hands, he started to drop the magic arts from the helicopter. Boom, boom, boom. Many cultivators who had just jumped into the sky were shot down by the formidable explosions instantly. Even though the Taoist body didn't have any Taoist connotation, his magic arts could still suppress the powerhouses at the void training stage easily. FCK. Damn, the explosion got me. How could a guy at the infant transformation have such powerful magic arts? That white-haired guy always approaches without casting a shadow and leaves without leaving a trace. He appeared and disappeared in the upflowing sea inexplicably before. Now he has appeared in the helicopter again. Oh, no, his magic arts are too weird. Although he didn't kill us, we can't approach the helicopter. Let's catch up and have a look. No way. Even if his magic arts can't kill us, we'll definitely be seriously wounded if we keep following him. Exactly. I guess this guy is going to set us up again. Otherwise, he would never show up alone. Let's retreat. After leaving the mystery land, we should get more people to help seek revenge on him. At last, his pursuers were becoming fewer and fewer. However, fiery lotuses fell from the helicopter continuously. Zhu Kei's real body drove the helicopter while his Taoist body kept dropping all kinds of fiery lotuses and the heavenly thunder seals. He had turned the helicopter into a bomber. Many fiery lotuses exploded in the sky and turned the sky into a dazzling sea of flames. This scene froze the blood of many cultivators. That guy is really a monster. He has used so many magic arts. Is his true core strength inexhaustible? SHT. Look, he's writing something with the fiery lotuses. What's he writing? I can read. Exploding. Get lost, illiterate. What he wrote is, exploding heaven's faction is awesome. Dong Genji is a dumbass. The whole sky had become Zhu Kei's blackboard. The true core strength of the Taoist body was quite magnificent. With 5 spiritual roots and the ancient 5 elemental arts, the Taoist body managed to write words by dropping fiery lotuses continuously. This reminded him of when he used to doodle with the star Miscanthus during the trial in the sky in Sin's Valley. At last, nobody wanted to chase him anymore. The cultivators decided to summon more people and punish Zhu Kei at the entrance of the mystery land. Zhu Kei was quite happy about being alone. Then, he flew directly toward the mountain and arrived when evening fell. Stopping in front of the golden barrier, he tentatively asked, "Most revered fairy maiden, are you there?" The silent mountain gave him no response. Zhu Kei said again, "Fairy maiden, Wajud, your apprentice was wounded, so he asked me to get help from you." He still got no reply. That's strange. Is she sleeping? Zhu Kei frowned slightly. After staring at the mountain suspiciously for a while, he stepped in with clenched teeth. He had flown all the way there, so he decided to risk it. His instincts also told him that the extremely beautiful Taoist nun was a respectable cultivator who abhorred all evil as deadly foes. However, she was so righteous that she didn't like people who used heretical methods. Therefore, Zhu Kei had worked out a solution on his way. If their talk collapsed again, he could continue his brilliant performance by telling her the miserable suffering of Zhao, which could absolutely impress her. Whoosh! He passed through the golden barrier. The boundless elixir field appeared in his eyes and the refreshing fragrance filled his nose. Magnificent spiritual chi flowed throughout this area, which was much more intense than the spiritual chi outside. Of course, the elixir field ruined by Zhu Ke was still in a mess. After entering this area, Zhu Ke couldn't help but blanch. He cleared his throat and, looking at the quiet, small, stone house, shouted, "Fairy maiden, I am here to admit my error and ask for punishment." His voice echoed around the spacious elixir fields. However, the small stone house was still very quiet. In the pitch-black night, the atmosphere was quite creepy and it seemed as if nobody had ever lived in the house at all. "Fairy maiden, after leaving here, I felt quite guilty. I even lost all my desire to eat or drink. I've lost a lot of weight. I can't stand the torture of my guilt, so I came here to apologize." The small stone house remained quiet. "You can beat me and scold me, but please don't keep silent." Zhu Ke didn't know what to do. He didn't believe the Taoist nun wasn't in the stone house. However, Zhu Ke really couldn't figure out her attitude if she remained silent. "No, I have to use my trump card." Zhu Ke clenched his teeth and summoned his Taoist body. Then, he took a piano out from the system package and placed it in front of himself. The next moment, his expression changed to one of melancholy and sadness. Then, he started to press the keys deeply. The slow and touching piano song started. Zhu Ke opened his mouth slightly and started to sing in a sad, sobbing voice. "That afternoon, I stood at your gate. You said you wanted to kill me and bit your lips. My apology and tears were all in vain. Maybe I should swallow this bitter fruit myself. I failed to fully comprehend your accommodations. I thought I didn't need an excuse as long as I was handsome enough. My heart begins to tremble as I sense your sorrow." But your expression has changed to one of apathy. At the climax of the song, Zhu Ke started to sing loudly and shed tears. "It's all my fault. Is it okay that I admit my mistake now? You said you don't love me anymore." He sniffed. "Sorry, I made a mistake." Zhu Ke stopped his fingers abruptly. The piano sound also stopped together with his singing. Meanwhile, he fixed his eyes on the small stone house to check whether he would get some sort of response. However, the stone house was still eerily silent. "Damn, I sang a song for you. Why do you still ignore me?" Zhu Ke couldn't stand it anymore. He had chosen to sing at this location because it was close to the entrance. In case there was any danger, he could escape at any time. The silent stone house made Zhu Ke suspicious. He doubted whether the Taoist nun was trying to lure him into her trap. "No, I have to try it again. I don't believe you could always keep silent." Zhu Ke fixed his eyes on the keyboard and started to play the piano again. Ding! With the lilting melodies, Zhu Ke started to sing wildly. "That night, you didn't reject me. That night, I hurt you. That night, your face was covered in tears. That night, you used your mouth to... No matter how sexually explicit Zhu Ke modified the lyrics, the stone house remained silent. Bang! Zhu Ke knocked at the piano with his fist and stood up. He had been backed into a corner. "HMPH, I don't believe it. Come out and let's have a duel. If you don't come out, I'll enter the house." He didn't want to waste his time, so he walked toward the stone house with his Taoist body. Squeak! The Taoist body opened the wooden door. The next moment, Zhu Ke was dumbfounded. Inside the stone house, it was very clean and looked totally different from the old and shabby room he had been in before. In the middle of the room, the pill cauldron had disappeared. That extremely beautiful Taoist nun was sitting on the ground silently with her legs folded as if she had fallen asleep. "Holy SHT!" Zhu Ke hissed. He was lucky for the Taoist nun was in secluded cultivation. It seemed she couldn't stop the cultivation. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been so quiet when Zhu Ke entered the room. Hey, fairy maiden, look at me." Zhu Ke started to probe her and waving his hand in front of her. However, the Taoist nun still sat with her eyes shut. There was no expression on her beautiful face. Only her towering bosom moved up and down slowly with her breathing. Zhu Ke started to make faces in front of her, but the Taoist nun remained silent. He took out an object which was quite black and long, and used it to poke her white and tender face slightly. However, His didn't wake her up either. Zuke let out a sigh of relief and put away the sugarcane he'd purchased from the system store. This is really fearsome. Now I could refine the 9 Revolutions revival fluid securely. Zuke smiled and sat in a wooden chair casually, making himself at home. Later, he couldn't help but peep at the bosom of the Taoist nun. His heartbeat quickened. She is so hot and tempting. This is definitely a one-way bet. Zuke swallowed. His heart and body started to slip out of his control. Chapter 674. Please insult me to your heart's content. There was always a choice in life. In front of such a beautiful, sleeping, defenseless Taoist nun, there was only one movement separating action from inaction. With his mouth parched and his tongue scorched, Zuke shook his head and sighed. It's tempting. Indeed, it was a temptation very hard to resist. However, his mind kept reminding him that he should not mess with this celestial-like woman. Although this Taoist nun was sleeping, she was more like a sleeping ferocious beast who could awake at any moment. Zuke was not good at resisting temptation. However, he could always stay vigilant for these pie-in-the-sky issues and calculate their risks. After some thought, he decided it was too risky to touch the woman. For instance, what if she opened her eyes while he was half-dressed? It seemed the excuse of taking off his clothes because of the hot weather wouldn't fool her. Also, what if she opened her eyes when he was about to enter her body? This was no longer a one-way bet. He would be killed on the spot. No, this is too risky. Only a fool could risk his life to have sex with a woman. After realizing that, Zuke sat up and said justly and severely, as a well-read scholar and upright gentleman, I will never do nasty things like that. Then, he looked at his Taoist body and said earnestly, there are too many temptations in this world, which always try to degenerate us. I didn't realize this before. However, today I realize that we should become in front of these pie-in-the-sky issues. We can't be controlled by our physical desires. What? You don't believe me? Let me show you something. The Taoist body. Zuke said, see. I've put one hand on her bosom, but I am still quite calm and stable. The Taoist body. Zuke said, now I have put 2 hands on her bosom and even gripped for 3 times. However, I could still keep a straight face. The Taoist body. Zuke said, now I am going to take off her Taoist robe. Ding. Warning. Warning. The system detected the host is doing something dangerous. Please stop immediately. Hearing the warning tone of the system, Zuke's expression changed and he stepped back immediately. Cold sweat appeared on his forehead. He also felt an inexplicable sense of danger. It seemed he would be endangered if he took off the Taoist robe. Damn, this woman is wicked, setting up restrictive spells on her clothes. Wait, is this Taoist robe a magic artifact? Zuke was shocked and fixed his widened eyes on the Taoist nun's clothes. The danger just now had been caused by the Taoist robe, which might protect its owner like a legendary magical artifact. No wonder she dares to perform secluded cultivation defenselessly. She's protected by this magical artifact. Forget it. As an ascetic gentleman, I will not be controlled by my physical desires. Let me handle business first. Zuke had stopped his mischievous actions in time. Although he also wanted to obtain the Taoist robe, he was not strong enough to take it off. In addition, he didn't want to waste more time here. After all, this beautiful Taoist nun could wake up at any time. If Zhao's revival was delayed by his mischievous actions, it would be a disaster. Zuke summoned the system. Check the content of the spiritual chi and prepare to refine the 9 Revolutions revival fluid. Ding. After several breaths, the system replied, through detection, the content of the spiritual chi outside this room is 60%, and the content of the spiritual chi inside this room is 80%. What? Zuke was shocked. Why is the difference between the indoor content and the outdoor content so big? He started glancing around with squinted eyes. So that explains it. Just as he'd expected, this small stone house was extraordinary. It seemed the walls were quite shabby. However, they were full of spell formations, which had formed a powerful soul-gathering array. Maybe this stone house has existed for a long time and the spell formations have faded out. Luckily, I was reminded by the system. It is quite difficult for ordinary cultivators to identify it, Zuke murmured in a low voice. Actually, after he entered this room, his eyes had fixed on the Taoist nun's body. Otherwise, he would have immediately discovered the spell formations. However, the soul gathering array in the stone house was really great news for Zuke. The system used to tell him that the higher the spiritual chi's content was, the more powerful Zhao's reshaped body would be. It could even be the five elements chaotic body. This kind of physique was even more horrible than Zuke's five elements celestial spiritual roots. The five elements celestial spiritual roots implied 5 types of celestial spiritual roots. As long as resources were sufficient, a cultivator with 5 elements celestial spiritual roots would realize speedy progress in their cultivation. Also, the owner would have abundant true core strength, which was much more powerful than other cultivators at the same cultivation stage. Meanwhile, the owner could easily learn and use magic arts of the 5 elements. The 5 elements chaotic body meant the owners had 5 chaotic spiritual roots, which were 1 grade higher than the celestial spiritual roots. Almost nobody in this world could have that kind of physique. Destined to be favored by the heavens, the owners of this physique would have no bottlenecks during cultivation and didn't need to cross heavenly tribulations. When someone tried to kill the owners of this physique, the heavens would drop divine retribution to protect them. This was because the chaos and the heavens had the same origin. After the revival of Zhao, she will definitely be extraordinary if she has this physique. Zuke smiled in satisfaction, but he didn't envy that. Although he was the owner of the 5 elements celestial spiritual roots, once he decided to acquire a magic art outside the category of the 5 elements, such as the magic power of thunders he had learned, the system would add the celestial thunder spiritual root to his body automatically. Once he could scrape together all the celestial spiritual roots, he would become the complete Taoist fetus. This could make him immortal. Of course, their physique was a cultivator's natural advantage. Their achievements and progress in cultivation depended on the cultivator's efforts and opportunities. Therefore, Zuke decided to strive for the best physique for Zhao, so that she could have a relatively easy time in cultivation in future. Zuke walked to the bed in the corner of the stone room and took out the 5 Genesis herbs as well as plenty of living holy water. At last, he took out Zhao's soul, which was sleeping in the soul pagoda. Start the refinery of the 9 revolutions revival fluid to revive Zhao. Ding. All conditions have been reached. Start the refinery now. Following the system's warning tone, Zhao's soul was immediately wrapped in the magnificent living holy water and then held up in the air by a formless power. Then, 5 colors of spiritual chi pouring from the 5 Genesis herbs started to interweave and gushed toward the living holy water. The refinery of the 9 revolutions revival fluid was the process of reshaping a body. When the refinery finished, the reshaped body would appear. Of course, the system did the refinery. After all, Zuke's current strength and skill were far from enough to reshape a body. The system also did the revival. This really relieved Zuke because it meant the chance of success could basically reach 100%. Ding. Congratulations to host Zuke for accomplishing the task of gathering the prescription of the 9 revolutions revival fluid. The reward is a mysterious item. The host's alchemy skill has also upgraded. Now the host is a 4-star alchemist. A task? Zuke was stunned a moment, and then he remembered that when he had purchased the prescription, he had no idea what all the ingredients were. However, the system turned searching for the prescription into a task and had guided him to find the 5 Genesis herbs. The system now deemed the commencement of the refinery the accomplishment of the task. The system was now also giving him additional rewards, which surprised him. But Zuke was not pleasantly surprised. On the contrary, Zuke frowned and shook his head. I don't want these rewards. For me, the revival of Zhao is not a task but a promise to guard what is good. Please don't insult my promise with these rewards. The system's tone came in again. Ding. The task reward is a mystery item. The red rope of marriage. Is the host really going to reject it? The red rope of marriage? Zuke's eyes widened. No, I want it. Do you have something else like this? Please insult me to your heart's content. Chapter 675, A fate match is drawn by a thread. The red rope of marriage, a mysterious tool generated from the system, which is not for sale. A fate match across 1,000 miles is drawn by a thread. The predestined relationship is decided by the heaven and the red rope. Tie this red rope to the wrists or ankles of two people to generate predestined marriage and enhance affinity. After reading the description of the red rope of marriage, Zuke couldn't help but gape. Awesome rope. For so long he had only gotten things related to cultivation from the system. This time the tool could be considered a divine tool of flirtation. No, a divine tool which could send girls into his arms. Haha, it is really useful this time. Zuke started to snigger delightedly. Who should I use this tool on? Liu Jingning? No way, that little sister always flirts with me. If I use this red rope on her, her flirtation will be even more horrible. Zhang Hongyan? No, I will conquer the Empress with my own strength. Who else could I use it on? Zuke's eyes fixed on the extremely beautiful Taoist nun sitting in the stone house, a celestial-like woman. I will use it on you. Zuke took out the red rope from the system package and walked toward the Taoist nun with a smile. He got very close to her, and the fragrance of her body was very refreshing. Zuke knew he was not good at controlling himself. He couldn't stare at her like this for a long time. However, she was amazingly charming. Her beautiful white face, her artistic and delicate facial features, and her nice figure, which couldn't be concealed by the baggy Taoist robe, were enchanting. This reminded Zuke of some lyrics. If I see you once more, will I still feel the palpitation? She was an awful woman who could make people palpitate at first sight. She was indeed a celestial-like woman. Even sovereigns couldn't get her heart, let alone ordinary people. She was as beautiful as the Empress, but their temperaments were different. However, compared to the Empress, it would be more difficult to flirt with the Taoist nun. After all, the Empress was not that powerful. She had been forced to leave the Zhang family and had arrived at the Water Nation. Their relationship started when Zuke saw her naked in the spiritual Qi Tower. In any other case, no matter how hard Zuke worked, he wouldn't have formed a close relationship with the Empress. As for the Taoist nun in front of him, she had almost killed Zuke when they first met. He had left a vile impression in the heart of the Taoist nun. Moreover, this woman was horribly powerful. Flirting with her would be more difficult than becoming a celestial. But now it was different. With the red rope in his hand, he could marry all kinds of women. How could he miss such a perfect woman? Fairy maiden, from now on, we are the predestined couple. If you insist on hunting me down, I could really punish you as your husband. Zuke said with a gentle smile. Meanwhile, he started to tie the red rope on her wrist. The Taoist nun, whose hands were forming a seal in front of her Danshan, was still sitting on the ground quietly with her legs folded. Zuke tied the red rope on her wrist easily. He worried the string would become loose, so he made over a dozen knots in it. Finally, he tied the other end of the red rope on his wrist. After knotting it, a faint halo appeared on the red rope, which disappeared into their wrists immediately. What? Is it finished? Zuke waved his arm and he couldn't feel the red rope anymore. However, when he looked at the Taoist nun, he got the vague feeling that he had known her for a long time and that they could trust each other. He would have to check the effects when the Taoist nun woke up. Zuke smiled expectantly. This is quite exciting. After staring at the Taoist nun for a while, he turned around and walked toward the soul of Zhao. At this time, Zhao's soul was still wrapped in the living holy water. She was lying there quietly with her body curled up like a sleeping fetus in its mother's belly. Zuke was surprised by a newly emerged thought. Could it be that Zhao would have to start from an infant after her revival? System, is Zhao's reshaped body identical with the body in her past life? Zuke couldn't help but ask the system. Ding. The body reshaped by the 9 revolutions revival fluid will be more perfect? It could be slightly modified based on the body in her past life. The system replied. Good. Zuke let out a sigh of relief. Then, he asked, oh, how long will the reshaping last for? I am in a hurry. I have to uproot another 17 living holy trees in this upflowing sea. Ding. After calculation, the body reshaping will last 2 years and 3 days. What? Zhu Ke choked. 2 years and 3 days? Why did the body reshaping need 2 years? Ding. The body reshaping is something against the will of heaven. The host shall wait patiently. The system replied. Zhu Ke considered this its way of consoling him, so he was able to calm down. Revival was not something that could be rushed. Moreover, he had spent several years collecting the Genesis herbs. He didn't care if he had to wait another 2. Also, it could actually be good for him to wait 2 years. After all, after obtaining all the living holy trees, he would start the secluded cultivation to reach the void training stage before the closing of the mystery land. He didn't have a lot of time to stay with Zhao. Since the body reshaping needed 2 years, he chose to leave her in this place. The Taoist nun could protect her for 2 years. At the thought of this, Zhu Ke looked at Zhao's soul gently and said with a faint smile, "Zhao, I'll leave now for some business. When you wake up, I will meet you here." After saying that, he purchased a piece of white paper from the system store and wrote a short message on it. He left this message for the Taoist nun. In this message, he told her that Zhao's body was being reshaped. He hoped the Taoist nun could take care of her and he would repay her in the future. Also, he mentioned he would take Zhao away before the mystery land closed. He wouldn't disturb the Taoist nun for too long. After writing down these words, he folded the message and put it in front of the Taoist nun. Then, he turned around and left. He would return to the upflowing sea. The helicopter had expired, so Zhu Ke rented a stealth jet fighter. This jet fighter could be as stealthy as the Quinjet of SHIELD. It could also fly faster. Now Zhu Ke was flying toward the upflowing sea at triple sonic speed. On his way, almost nobody could sense his existence. Even if someone did sense him, Zhu Ke asked his Taoist body to blow them away with dozens of fiery lotuses. When he arrived at the first island in the upflowing sea, it was already dawn. He only spent 1 day and 1 night during his round trip, including the time he had spent in the small stone house. It was marvelously quick. However, when he approached the island, he saw that several ships were fighting with one another on the sea surface. Cultivators from different families and sects were fighting while the ships were clashing at each other violently. Buttface and Wanjud placed several chairs on the edge of the island. Then, they sat in the chairs and started to enjoy the battle, gnawing at the watermelons in their hands. They even cheered from time to time. Liu Jingning sensed Zhu Ke's aura. She was surprised and tried to locate Zhu Ke with her beautiful eyes. Zhu Ke smiled, then he ordered his Taoist body to ask Liu Jingning to keep silent by sending her message. He operated the jet fighter to rain bullets at Wanjud and Buttface. Holy SHT, holy SHT, holy SHT. My watermelon. Buttface and Wanjud were surprised by the unexpected attack. The watermelons in their hands were torn apart by the bullets, and they started to search for the attacker angrily. After sensing Zhu Ke's aura, Wanjud and Buttface were dumbfounded. They knew Zhu Ke was there but they couldn't see him with their eyes. It was, after all, a stealth plane. A cultivator couldn't see the plane if their true core strength was not used. What's this? How could it be invisible? Wanjud gasped when he discovered the stealth jet fighter with his true core strength. He could clearly sense there was also no fluctuation of spiritual chi in this plane. It was made from ordinary iron. Amazing, young man. How did you make it invisible? Wanjud was totally surprised. Apparently, he was quite interested in this stealth jet fighter. Buttface, who was more direct, jumped up excitedly. Then, he shouted in a flattering way, "Little brat, it's awesome. Please land it and I want to have a try." "No, I should try it first." Wanjud shouted immediately. "As a dog, you don't need to learn how to drive a plane. FCK, you're a dog. All your family members are dogs." He suddenly spat at the man. "Damn, how dare you spit at me?" Wanjud spit back at him. "That plane is mine. I will be the one who will drive it next." They continued spitting at each other. Whoosh! Almost at the same time, Zhu Ke landed the plane on the island. Then, he opened the door of the co-pilot seat and shouted at Liu Jingning, "Little sister, I don't have time to explain. Please board the plane and help me fly it."